Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was born as the son of Hela, the Norse goddess of death. Naruto x Harem. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Death-Touched Child. Twilight bled across Konoha's horizon, painting the sky in shades of dying embers. A woman stood atop the Hokage monument, her silhouette stark against the fading light. She was not of this world, her body wrapped in a skin-tight suit of deepest emerald, crowned with an elaborate headdress that branched like the antlers of some primordial beast. Her eyes, sharp as cut jade, surveyed the village with cold calculation. Hela, goddess of death, ruler of Helheim, breathed the air of Midgard and found it wanting. "How the mighty Odin would rage to see me here," she murmured, voice like velvet dragged across obsidian. Banished from Asgard only to find passage through the world tree's forgotten roots. The breeze carried whispers of life, thousands of souls burning bright in the village below. Each one a small flame that would, inevitably, be extinguished. Such was the natural order she presided over. Yet tonight, Hela sought something beyond her usual purview. Not death, but perhaps its opposite. Her hand drifted to her abdomen, where impossibility grew within her divine form. A child, her child, the result of a union that should never have been. "My lady," a voice spoke. From shadows that hadn't existed moments before. The shinobi approaches. Leah, her most faithful handmaiden, materialized beside her, pale features impassive as always. A being born from death essence itself. Leah understood loyalty but not the complications of sentiment that now plagued her mistress. "Leave us," Hela commanded, not bothering to look at her servant. "Return to Helheim. Ensure my absence remains unnoticed." The handmaiden dissolved into verdant mist without another word. Minutes passed in solitude before Hela sensed him, the mortal who had accomplished what no other being had in millennia. He had made the goddess of death feel something beyond contempt. Minato Namikaze appeared in a flash of golden light, his technique impressive even by divine standards. The 4th Hokage stood warily 10 paces from her, blue eyes sharp with intelligence that had first drawn her attention. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low and measured. "Our agreement was clear. You would remain in your realm until the child is born." Hela's laugh was cold. "Have you forgotten whom you address, mortal? I do not adhere to agreements. I bestow terms." Despite her harsh words, something in her posture softened as Minato stepped closer. Their unlikely connection had begun 6 months prior during a phenomenon the shinobi called the Midnight Eclipse, when boundaries between realms had temporarily weakened. A goddess in exile and a shinobi researching dimensional barriers, meeting at the precipice between worlds. What followed defied explanation. Perhaps loneliness. Perhaps curiosity. Perhaps something dangerously close to affection. Minato sighed, running fingers through sun-gold hair. "Something's wrong. You wouldn't risk coming here otherwise." Hela turned away, gazing over the village. "The child stirs with power that is neither fully mine nor yours. A convergence unprecedented in the 9 realms." Her fingers curled into a fist. "Odin has sensed a disturbance." Heimdall's gaze turns increasingly toward Midgard. "And Kushina?" Minato asked, referencing his wife, the woman who had agreed to an impossible deception. "The vessel serves her purpose. The illusion holds. None suspect she carries anything but a mortal child." Minato's eyes flashed with momentary anger. "Her name is Kushina. She's risking everything to protect a child that isn't hers because I asked it of her." Sentiment, Hela dismissed, though without her usual venom. "The child will come within the fortnight. When it does, decisions must be made." The air between them crackled with unspoken tensions. A god and a mortal, creators of something neither world was prepared for. "I've told the village council that the child, our son, will become the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki," Minato said quietly. "It provides explanation for any unusual manifestations of power." Hela's laugh was bitter. "You would bind my offspring to a mere beast. The child of Helheim's throne requires no borrowed power." "He needs protection," Minato countered. "From your enemies. From mine. From those who would use him. The Nine-Tails provides both cover and additional strength." For a moment, death's aura flared around Hela. Grass withering in a perfect circle at her feet. Then, just as suddenly, it receded. Perhaps, she conceded, your strategy has merit. But know this, Namikaze, should harm come to my heir, not even Odin's power would prevent my wrath from consuming this realm. Minato stepped closer. Daring what no being had in centuries, he touched her, fingers brushing against her arm. Our son will have my protection until my dying breath. A fragile guarantee for one so mortal, Hela replied, but did not pull away. As darkness fully claimed the sky, they stood together in silence, contemplating the impossible future unfolding before them. 9 days later, crimson moonlight bathed Konoha in unnatural light. Something's wrong with the seal, Kushina gasped. Her body contorted in pain beyond normal childbirth. Red chakra leaked from her abdomen, forming patterns that shifted and changed against established Fuinjutsu principles. Minato worked frantically, hands flying through seals while sweat beaded on his forehead. They were in a cave beyond the village boundaries, chosen for its isolation and the ancient power that slumbered in its crystalline walls. The Nine Tails is fighting the transfer, he said grimly. And something else is interfering. That, something else, manifested as tendrils of emerald energy intertwining with the Nine Tails crimson chakra, creating a lattice of power around the unborn child. Divine energy meeting demonic force, with a human infant caught between. Minato, Kushina grabbed his wrist, her violet eyes wide. I sense death. The air shimmered, reality folding in upon itself as Hela materialized within the cave. Her appearance had changed. Gone was the elaborate headdress, replaced by a crown of thorns that seemed to grow from her skull. Her battle-ready attire suggested she hadn't come in peace. The 9 realms tremble, she announced without preamble. Odin's raven's circle. The birth of this child ripples across Yggdrasil itself. Help us, Minato demanded, abandoning protocol. Your son is killing his surrogate mother. Something flashed across Hela's face. Perhaps concern, perhaps merely annoyance at complications. She approached Kushina, who stared up at the goddess with defiant pain in her eyes. You have courage, vessel, Hela observed, placing a pale hand on Kushina's distended abdomen. Few mortals would bear a demigod to term. Green light flowed from her fingertips, seeping into Kushina's body. The red-haired Kunoichi gasped, then relaxed slightly as the competing energies stabilized. The Nine Tails resists sharing its host with another power, Hela explained. And my son resists containment by anything less than his birthright. Minato continued the complex Ling Jutsu while Hela maintained her connection to the unborn child. Can you help complete the transfer? He asked. Hela's expression darkened. You still intend to bind my heir to your demon? I intend to give our son the best chance at survival, Minato snapped, his legendary composure cracking under pressure. The Nine Tails chakra will mask his divine signature. It buys time for him to grow strong enough to protect himself. For several tense moments, Hela said nothing. Then, with remarkable gentleness, she placed her other hand on Kushina's forehead. Your plan has merit, she conceded. But it requires modification. Without warning, Hela began an incantation in a language that predated human civilization. The air grew heavy, reality itself seeming to bend around her words. Minato felt his own carefully constructed seal formula being reshaped, divine power integrating with shinobi techniques in ways he hadn't believed possible. What are you doing? He demanded. Creating balance. Hela replied without breaking her rhythm. The fox demon will shield my son from Heimdall's sight, while my blood will protect him from the demon's corruption. Kushina screamed as the dual energies surged. The cave trembled, crystal formations shattering around them. Outside, the blood-red moon reached its zenith. Now, Hokage, Hela commanded. Complete your jutsu while the realms align. Minato's hands blurred through the final sequence. Light erupted from Kushina's body, crimson and emerald intertwined, pulsing with the rhythm of 2 heartbeats. Then came a third sound, the cry of a newborn child. As the light faded, Kushina lay exhausted but alive, the complex seal on her abdomen now dormant. In Minato's arms, a baby boy with wisps of golden hair opened his eyes for the first time. Eyes that shifted from summer blue to piercing green before settling somewhere in between. Naruto, Minato whispered, the name they had chosen months before. Hela approached, her expression unreadable as she gazed upon her son. For the briefest moment, Something like tenderness crossed her features. She extended one finger, which the infant grasped with surprising strength. He carries both our essences, she observed. More balanced than I anticipated. Will he be safe? Minato asked, the question laden with multiple meanings. Hela withdrew her hand. From Odin, perhaps. From the Nine Tails, uncertain. From the burden of his heritage. Her laugh was hollow. Never. Outside the cave, alarms began to sound throughout Konoha. Minato tensed, recognizing the signal for imminent attack. The village is under siege, Hela confirmed, turning toward the cave entrance. Opportunists sensing the dimensional disturbance. Your shinobi enemies move against you while you are vulnerable. Minato carefully transferred Naruto to Kushina's waiting arms. I have to go. Can you protect them? Hela raised an eyebrow. Do not insult me, Namikaze. No force on Midgard could harm my son while I stand. Despite the circumstances, Minato smiled. I was going to ask if you could help Kushina back to the village once it's secure. Ah, for once, the goddess seemed momentarily discomfited. Yes, that as well. Quote, Minato's expression turned serious. We always knew this day would bring danger. Whatever happens, he hesitated. Our son will need both his legacies. Both our strengths. Before Hela could respond, he vanished in a flash of golden light. Left alone with Kushina and the newborn, Hela found herself in the unusual position of offering comfort to a mortal. Your Hokage is formidable, she said awkwardly, for one whose existence is so fleeting. Kushina laughed weakly, cradling Naruto against her chest. High praise from the goddess of death. Her violet eyes studied Hela with surprising directness. Will you be part of his life? Or will you disappear back to your realm now that he's born? The question struck Hela with unexpected force. In all her planning, she hadn't fully considered what would come after. Gods did not typically raise their demigod offspring. They were left to discover their heritage through trials and tribulations. Yet looking at the small, perfect being in Kushina's arms, Hela felt an unfamiliar reluctance to follow tradition. She began, only to be interrupted by a massive explosion that shook the earth around them. The attack on Konoha had escalated. Hela moved to the cave in trance, her body tensing as she assessed the threat. In the distance, a massive form materialized above the village, a fox with 9 swirling tails. Its body composed of malevolent chakra. Impossible, Kushina whispered, struggling to stand. The 9 tails cannot have escaped the seal. Not with your modifications. It didn't, Hela confirmed, eyes narrowing. This is something else. A deception. Before either could react further, a figure shimmered into existence at the cave entrance. A man in an orange spiral mask, irradiating chakra that reeked of ancient malice. The child, he demanded, voice distorted. Give me the Jinchuriki. Hela turned slowly, power emanating from her in palpable waves. Death's essence thickened the air around her, causing the masked man to pause mid-step. You are either very brave or catastrophically foolish, she stated, voice dropping to a dangerous register. Do you know what I am, mortal? The masked man tilted his head. You are unexpected, he admitted. But not insurmountable. He launched forward with impossible speed, body becoming intangible as Hela unleashed a barrage of necroswords. The weapons passed through him harmlessly as he reappeared beside Kushina, hand outstretched toward Naruto. What happened next occurred too quickly for human perception to follow. The masked man's fingers, mere centimeters from Naruto's blanket, suddenly stopped. Not from impact, but from absence. His entire hand simply ceased to exist, severed not by blade but by Hela's command over death itself. He screamed, staggering backward as green-black energy consumed the stump of his wrist. You dare, Hela seethed, advancing on him. You dare to touch my son. For the first time, genuine fear emanated from the masked figure. What are you? He gasped. Hela smiled, terrible and beautiful. I am Hela, Odin's firstborn, commander of the legions of Helheim, rightful heir to the throne of Asgard. And goddess of death. Her power flared, cracking the stone beneath her feet. And you have made a grave miscalculation. The masked man attempted to use his intangibility again. But Hela's power circumvented physical limitations. Death, after all, came for everything eventually. He howled as necrotic energy climbed his arm, desperation driving him to sever the limb himself. With a kunai before the infection spread further. This isn't over, he hissed, space warping around him. The child's power will be mine. One way or another. Brave words, Hela replied coldly. I'll remember them when you enter my realm. As all things do, eventually. The masked man vanished in a swirling vortex, leaving behind only a spray of blood and the lingering sense of malevolence. Kushina clutched Naruto protectively. That was Madara Uchiha, she said, recognition dawning. Or someone claiming his power. He must have created that false nine tails attacking the village. Hela earned her attention to the distant battle, where Minato could be seen engaging the fox demon directly. Your husband fights well, she observed. But that creature, illusion or not, carries destructive potential beyond mortal means. Making a decision, Hela approached Kushina and placed a hand on Naruto's forehead. The infant, remarkably, hadn't cried throughout the entire confrontation. I must aid Namikaze, she stated. The fox's presence threatens to destabilize the seals we've placed on our son. Kushina nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Go, we'll be safe here. Hela hesitated, then did something unexpected. She leaned down and pressed her lips to Naruto's forehead, a gesture so gentle it seemed incongruous with her nature. Live, my son, she whispered. Grow strong in both your bloodlines. With that, she vanished in a swirl of emerald energy, leaving behind the scent of yew and ancient stone. The battle for Konoha ended before dawn. The price was high, hundreds dead, including the fourth Hokage and his wife. The official story, carefully constructed by the reinstated third Hokage, told of Minato and Kushina sacrificing themselves to seal the nine tails into their newborn son. A partial truth that would shape Naruto's childhood in ways none could fully predict. What the stories didn't mention was the strange green light witnessed by Anbuo. Paratives as Minato performed his final jutsu. Or how Kushina's body, recovered from the battlefield, bore unusual markings that resembled neither burns nor bruises but something akin to branches spreading beneath her skin. And none spoke of the pale woman in green who stood vigil over an orphaned infant for one night before disappearing into shadows that swallowed light. 7 years later. Demon Child. The rock struck Naruto's shoulder with enough force to make him stumble. He didn't cry out. Experience had taught him that showing pain only encouraged more. Instead, he straightened his small frame and faced his tormentors, 3 boys several years older than him. I'm not a demon, he stated, voice surprisingly steady for a 7-year-old confronting bullies nearly twice his size. The leader of the group, a chunky boy with close cropped hair, sneered. Everyone knows what you are. My father says you killed the 4th Hokage. That you're the Nine Tails in human form. That's stupid, Naruto replied. Blue-green eyes flashing. If I was the Nine Tails, don't you think I'd have eaten you by now? The attempted joke fell flat as the boys advanced. Naruto backed against the academy wall, mentally calculating escape routes. He'd gotten better at evading pursuers over the years, necessity being an effective teacher. Maybe we should find out if demons bleed, the tallest boy suggested. Pulling out a dulled practice kunai. Something cold settled in Naruto's stomach. Not fear, exactly. Something older. Something that whispered of power just beyond his reach. The feeling had been growing stronger lately, emerging whenever he felt threatened. I wouldn't, Naruto warned, though he couldn't have explained what he was warning them against. The boys laughed, unaware of the subtle darkening of shadows around them, the almost imperceptible wilting of grass beneath their feet. What are you going to do, orphan? Call for your dead parents. Anger flared, white-hot and dangerous. Naruto felt something crack inside him, a barrier between himself and that cold, whispering power. The air around him cooled dramatically, frost crystallizing on the academy wall at his back. I said, he repeated, voice dropping to a register unusual for a child, I wouldn't. The lead bully raised his hand to strike, and screamed. The practice kunai clattered to the ground as he clutched his fingers. Suddenly blackened as if with severe frostbite. What did you do? He shrieked, panic replacing bravado. What did you do to me? Naruto looked as shocked as everyone else. I didn't mean. But the damage was done. The other boys pulled their injured friend away, casting terrified glances back at Naruto. Freak. One called out. Death touch freak. Left alone. Naruto stared at his hands in confusion and growing horror. This wasn't the first incident. Last month, a shopkeeper who had roughly thrown him out of a store had collapsed, complaining of chest pains. Before that, a cat that had scratched him had been found stiff and cold the next morning. Death seemed to follow him, striking those who meant him harm. He hadn't connected these events until now, seeing the evidence so plainly. Am I really a demon? He whispered to himself, tears welling in his eyes. No, came a voice from behind him. You're just a boy with a complicated heritage. Yuto spun around to find Iruka-sensei watching him with an unreadable expression. The academy instructor approached cautiously, though without the fear that characterized most adults' interactions with Naruto. They started it, Naruto said defensively. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Iruka crouched down to eye level. I saw what happened. But Naruto, this isn't the first incident. The boy's shoulders slumped. Are you going to tell old man Hokage? Am I going to be kicked out of the academy? No, Iruka said firmly. But I think it's time you learn some control techniques. He hesitated. The Hokage has a special training regimen for you. We've been waiting until you were a little older, but perhaps it's time. Hope flickered across Naruto's face. Special training. Like, awesome jutsu. Iruka smiled despite himself. The boy's resilience was remarkable given his circumstances. Something like that. More like exercises to help you channel your energy properly. What I couldn't explain was that these techniques, developed by the third Hokage with input from ancient scrolls, were designed specifically to help contain whatever power Naruto had inherited from his unusual parentage. The official story maintained he was simply learning to control the Nine-Tails chakra, but certain observations had led the Hokage to suspect something more complex was at work. When do we start? Naruto asked eagerly. Tomorrow morning, Iruka replied. But for now, perhaps you should visit the infirmary. That rock left a nasty bruise. Naruto touched his shoulder, wincing slightly. It's okay. I heal fast. This, at least, was demonstrably true. Injuries that would keep other children bedridden for days barely slowed Naruto down. Another anomaly in a growing list. Nevertheless, Iruka insisted. Protocol is protocol. As they walked toward the academy building, Iruka noticed something he'd seen several times before, how plants seemed to wilt slightly as Naruto passed, only to recover once he moved on. A subtle effect, easy to dismiss as imagination, but consistent enough to be concerning. Sensei, Naruto asked, interrupting Iruka's thoughts. Do you think I'm dangerous? The question, delivered with such innocent directness, caught Iruka off guard. He considered his answer carefully. I think all shinobi are potentially dangerous, he replied honestly. That's why we train. Not just to develop our abilities, but to master ourselves. He placed a hand on Naruto's uninjured shoulder. Power without control is just chaos, Naruto. But power with purpose can protect what's precious to us. Naruto absorbed this, expression unusually serious for a child his age. I want to protect, not hurt, he said finally. I don't like it when the bad things happen. Iruka felt a surge of compassion for the boy. Whatever strange power he harbored, Naruto's heart seemed fundamentally good, a miracle considering the isolation and fear he'd endured. That's why we're going to train, Iruka assured him, so you can choose what happens, not just react. Naruto nodded, a determined glint entering his unusual eyes. I'll work harder than anyone, believe it. As they entered the academy, neither noticed the raven perched on a nearby tree, its eyes gleaming with unnatural intelligence as it observed their interaction. Nor did they see how it disperse into green mist once they were out of sight, its purpose fulfilled. In Helheim, Hela received the raven's memories with mixed emotions. Her son was growing, developing powers that reflected his heritage despite the seal designed to suppress them. But he suffered for this difference, isolated among mortals who feared what they couldn't understand. For the 1000th time, she questioned her decision to leave him in Midgard. And for the 1000th time, she concluded there had been no better alternative. Bringing a half-mortal child to Helheim would have exposed him to dangers far greater than schoolyard bullies, Odin's wrath chief among them. Still, watching her son struggle stirred something protective in Hela that she had thought long extinguished. Perhaps there were ways to guide him from afar, to prepare him for the inevitable day when his heritage could no longer remain hidden. With a gesture, she summoned Leah to her throne room. My lady requires something, the handmaiden asked, expression neutral as always. Yes, Hela replied, decision made. Prepare for a journey to Midgard. There is a gift I wish delivered to my son. The special training began at dawn the following day. Naruto stood in a clearing within the Forbidden Forest, an area typically off-limits to academy students. The third Hokage himself had come to oversee the initial session, his Ed face solemn as he explained the situation. Naruto, he began, pipe smoke wreathing his head, what I'm about to tell you is classified information. Do you understand what that means? The boy nodded eagerly. Secret stuff, like Anbu missions. Hiruzen Sarutobi smiled faintly. Yes, something like that. This concerns your special circumstances. Naruto's expression sobered immediately. You mean the 9 tails? Partly. The Hokage acknowledged. You know that the fourth sealed the 9 tails within you as an infant. What you don't know is that there were complications during the sealing process. This was as close to the truth as the Hokage dared venture. The full story of Hela's involvement, of Naruto's dual heritage, remained restricted to a handful of the highest-ranking officials. Even they knew only fragments, pieced together from observations and the cryptic notes Minato had left behind. Complications, Naruto repeated, confusion evident. Yes, the 9 tails. Chakra interacted with your own in unexpected ways. The Hokage gestured to the circle inscribed on the ground around them, a sealing array of unusual complexity. These exercises will help you distinguish between your chakra and the fox's influence. What the Hokage didn't say was that these seals were designed to identify which unusual manifestations came from the 9 tails and which might come from Naruto's maternal heritage, a mystery that continued to concern Konoha's leadership. Is that why weird stuff happens sometimes? Naruto asked bluntly. Like yesterday with those bullies. Hiruzen nodded gravely. These incidents occur when your emotions overwhelm your control. Through meditation and chakra exercises, we can help you maintain balance. For the next 2 hours, Naruto attempted meditation techniques far beyond standard academy curriculum. To everyone's surprise, he showed unusual aptitude once he overcame his initial restlessness. When asked to visualize his inner chakra, his descriptions were troubling. There's the normal blue stuff swirling around, he explained, eyes closed in concentration. Then there's angry red bubbles trying to get out. But there's also, I don't know how to explain it. Green threads. They're cold but not scary. They feel familiar. The Hokage and Iruka exchanged concerned glances. The red obviously represented the 9 tails chakra. But the green energy had no precedent in any Jinchuriki documentation. Focus on separating these energies in your mind, Hiruzen instructed. Imagine containing the red chakra, while allowing your natural blue chakra to flow normally. Quote, what about the green stuff? Naruto asked innocently. A moment of hesitation. For now, observe it but don't interact with it. We need to understand it better. The training continued, with Naruto making remarkable progress for his age. By midday, he could maintain a meditative state for 15 minutes, an eternity for a hyperactive 7-year-old. More importantly, the ambient effect he had on surrounding plant life diminished noticeably when he achieved this state. Excellent work, Naruto, the Hokage praised as they concluded the session. Well, I'll continue these exercises 3 times weekly. Can I learn actual jutsu too? Naruto asked hopefully. The other kids are already practicing transformation techniques. Hiruzen chuckled. Patience. Master these fundamentals first. I promise the rest will come more easily afterward. As they left the training ground, neither adult noticed the small green shoot emerging from where Naruto had sat in meditation, a sprout of yew. A plant not native to Fire Country, its leaves an unusually vibrant emerald. That night, Naruto dreamed. He stood in a vast hall of stone and bone, green fire burning in sconces along walls that stretched impossibly high. Before him loomed a throne fashioned from what appeared to be a single massive antler, twisted and expanded to seat-sized proportions. Up, on this throne sat a woman who simultaneously terrified and fascinated him. Her beauty was severe, her posture regal, her eyes piercing with recognition as they fell upon him. You've found your way here at last, she said. voice reverberating with power that Naruto somehow recognized deep in his bones. Sooner than expected. Who are you? He asked, surprising himself with his lack of fear. Where is this place? The woman rose from her throne, her green and black garments flowing like liquid shadow. I am Hela, ruler of Helheim. She approached, each step deliberate. And you, Naruto Uzumaki, are my son. Even within the dream, Naruto felt the world tilt beneath him. That's impossible, he protested. My parents died fighting the Nine Tails. Everyone knows that. Your father died, Hela corrected. Now standing directly before him. A noble end for a mortal, even one as exceptional as Minato Namikaze. But I am no mortal to perish so easily. She knelt, bringing herself to his eye level. This close, Naruto could see his own features reflected in hers, the shape of his eyes, the curve of his jaw, subtle similarities he'd never noticed in any Konoha citizen. I don't understand, he whispered. If you're my mother, why am I alone? Why didn't you stay? Something like regret crossed Hela's face. The realms of gods and mortals are not meant to intersect so directly. My recence in your world draws attention we cannot afford, not until you're strong enough to claim your birthright. Birthright. You are heir to Helheim, Naruto. Death's domain flows in your veins alongside Shinobi Chakra. Hela gestured, and a small globe of green energy materialized between them. The power that manifests when you're threatened, the death touch, as your peers so crudely name it, is merely the first awakening of your heritage. Naruto stared at his hands, remembering the bully's blackened fingers. I hurt people. I don't want to hurt people. Power is neither good nor evil, Hela stated. Death comes to all eventually. You simply have the ability to hasten or delay its approach. With training, you will learn precision. The Hokage is already training me, Naruto said. To control the Nine Tails chakra. Hela's expression darkened. The fox demon is a complication, but also a convenient misdirection. Let them believe your abilities stem from it, for now. She waved her hand, and the throne room dissolved, replaced by a moonlit forest clearing. The same training ground where Naruto had spent the morning. Your mortal instructors teach restraint and suppression, Hela continued. Necessary lessons, but incomplete. I will teach you understanding and command. You'll train me, in my dreams. Dreams are where realms intersect most naturally, she explained. Here, I can guide you without drawing unwanted attention from either Asgard or your Konoha elders. Naruto considered this, his young mind struggling with implications beyond his years. If you're really my mother, can you prove it? Hela seemed momentarily taken aback by the directness of the request. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled, an expression that transformed her severe features into something almost warm. Clever child. Skepticism serves a shinobi well. She reached out, hesitating briefly before placing her palm against his cheek. When you wake, look beneath your bed. You'll find my token there, proof of both my identity and my promise to guide you. The dream began to fade, the clearing growing indistinct as consciousness tugged at Naruto's mind. Wait, he called out. Will I see you again? Every seventh night, Hela's voice replied, already distant. When the boundary between realms thins. Until then, practice what your mortal teachers show you. Build your strength. And remember, you are neither demon nor ordinary child. You are my son. Naruto woke with a gasp, early morning light filtering through his apartment window. For several minutes, he lay still, trying to determine if what he'd experienced had been a simple dream or something more. Only one way to find out. Rolling over, he peered beneath his bed, expecting to find nothing but dust and forgotten scrolls. Instead, his eyes widened at the sight of a small object that definitely hadn't been there when he went to sleep, a pendant on a slender chain, crafted from a material that resembled polish. Obsidian but seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. With trembling fingers, he retrieved it. The pendant was shaped like a stylized tree, branches reaching upward, roots extending below, within. Indistinct levels marked by tiny runes he couldn't read. It felt cool against his palm, but not unpleasantly so. It was real, he whispered, awe and confusion warring within him. She was real, as if responding to his recognition. The pendant pulsed once with subtle green light before returning to dormancy. Naruto quickly slipped it around his neck, tucking it beneath his shirt where it rested against his chest, a secret weight. a connection to something beyond the isolation that had defined his existence. For the first time since he could remember, Naruto felt something long absent from his life. The sense of belonging to someone. The academy classroom buzzed with pre-lesson energy, students chattering about weekend activities and upcoming exams. Naruto sat alone as usual, abs gently touching the hidden pendant beneath his shirt. 3 days had passed since the dream, and he'd thrown himself into the Hokage's training exercises with unprecedented dedication. "Quiet down, everyone," Iruka called, entering with a stack of papers. "Today we're reviewing transformation techniques before practical exams next week." Collective groans filled the room. Naruto straightened, determined to focus. Transformation jutsu had been particularly difficult for him, his chakra control still erratic despite recent improvements. "Before we begin," Iruka continued, "we have a new student joining us." He gestured to the doorway, where a girl Naruto's age stood quietly observing the class. She was unusual in appearance, pale skin contrasting sharply with raven-black hair cut in a severe bob. Her eyes, a shade of blue so dark they appeared almost black, surveyed the room with calm assessment beyond her years. "This is Hinata Hyuga," Iruka introduced. "She's been studying privately but will join our class going forward. Please make her welcome." Whispers erupted immediately. The Hyuga clan was prominent in Konoha, known for their distinctive Byakugan and formal mannerisms. This girl, however, looked nothing like the typical Hyuga with their pale eyes and traditional attire. She wore a simple dark blue dress with silver embroidery that resembled branches. "That can't be a Hyuga," someone murmured loudly enough to be heard. Iruka frowned. "Hinata is indeed from the Hyuga clan, though she has lived outside the village until recently. Her appearance is unique." The girl stepped forward, bowing formally to the class. "Thank you for accepting me," she said, voice soft but clear. "I look forward to training alongside you all." As she raised her head, her gaze locked with Naruto's. For an instant, something like recognition flashed in her dark blue eyes. Then, to everyone's surprise, she walked directly to the empty seat beside him, a space other students deliberately avoided. "May I sit here?" she asked politely. Naruto blinked, unused to anyone voluntarily approaching him. Sure. I mean, if you want to." As she settled beside him, Naruto noticed something odd. Unlike most people who came near him, the plants on the windowsill didn't seem affected by his presence. If anything, the small potted fern seemed to lean slightly toward them both. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki," he offered, still confused by her attention. "I know," she replied simply, then added, "Your chakra is interesting." Before he could ask what she meant, Iruka called the class to order, beginning the lesson. Throughout the morning, Naruto found himself hyperaware of his new neighbor, who took meticulous notes and occasionally glanced at him with that same look of curious assessment. During the practical portion of class, Hinata performed the basic transformation jutsu perfectly on her first attempt, impressive for someone just joining the academy. When Naruto's turn came, he concentrated harder than ever before, determined not to embarrass himself. "Transform," he called, channeling chakra through the hand sign. For a moment, it seemed to work. Smoke engulfed him, revealing a reasonable approximation of Iruka. Then, as had happened in previous attempts, something disrupted his chakra flow. Green energy briefly flickered through the transformation before it collapsed entirely. Laughter erupted from several classmates. "Nice try, death touch," someone called out. Naruto's shoulders slumped as he returned to his seat, face burning with embarrassment. To his surprise, Hinata leaned toward him. "You're using too much chakra," she whispered. "And something else is interfering. Something green." Naruto froze. "You can see that," she nodded, eyes intense. "My Byakugan isn't like other Hyugas. I see different things." She hesitated. "Your chakra has 3 colors. No one else does." Before Naruto could respond, Iruka dismissed the class for lunch. As students filed out to the academy yard, Hinata remained beside him. "Do you want to eat lunch together?" she asked, as if it were the most natural suggestion in the world. Naruto stared at her in disbelief. "You know people don't like being around me, right? They think I'm dangerous. Are you?" she countered, head tilting slightly. The question caught him off guard with its directness. I don't want to be, he answered honestly. Hinata smiled then, a small expression that transformed her solemn features. That's good enough for me. They found a spot beneath a tree at the edge of the yard, well away from other students. As they ate, Naruto found himself unusually comfortable in her presence, the isolation that typically surrounded him somehow diminished. So how come I've never seen you before? He asked between bites of his lunch. If you're a Hyuga and all. Hinata's expression grew guarded. I was born different. My eyes aren't like normal Byakugan. She looked down at her food. My father sent me to train with distant relatives until I could control what I see. What do you see? Naruto asked, genuinely curious. She met his gaze directly. Life energy. Death energy. The boundary between them. A pause. That's why your chakra fascinates me. You exist in both realms simultaneously. Naruto nearly choked on his rice. The pendant against his chest suddenly felt heavier, almost warm. I don't know what you're talking about, he said automatically, the denial reflexive after years of hiding his differences. Hinata didn't press the issue. That's okay. We all have secrets. She glanced toward the academy building. The teachers are afraid of what I might see. Just like they're afraid of what you might do. The simple observation, delivered without judgment, created an immediate bond between them. Two children set apart by abilities beyond their control, recognizing a kindred spirit. Does your weird vision thing help with jutsu? Naruto asked, changing the subject. Hinata nodded. I can see how chakra should flow. Maybe I could help you with the transformation technique. Really? You'd do that? Of course. That's what friends do, isn't it? Friends. The word hung between them. Precious in its novelty. Naruto felt a smile spreading across his face. Genuine, without the forced brightness he typically projected. Yeah, he agreed. That's what friends do. As they continued eating, neither noticed how the grass around them grew just a little greener, the flowers turned subtly toward them like seeking warmth. Nor did they see the raven watching from a nearby rooftop, its emerald eyes gleaming with approval. In Helheim, Hela observed the interaction through her familiar's eyes. The Hyuga girl was an unexpected development, her ability to perceive Naruto's divine essence potentially problematic. Yet the goddess felt no immediate concern. Perhaps having an ally who could see beyond mortal limitations would serve her son well in the challenges to come. Interesting, she murmured to herself. The threads of fate weave in unexpected patterns. Beside her throne, Leah stood impassively. Shall I continue monitoring the girl? She asked. Hela considered the question. Yes, she decided, but maintain distance. There's something unusual about her vision, something beyond typical Byakugan. As the raven took flight over Konoha, Hela turned her attention to more pressing matters. Signs indicated Odin's awareness of something amiss in Midgard was growing. Preparations would need to be accelerated if Naruto was to be ready. When the All-Father eventually discovered his existence, the game of realms had begun in earnest, with a 7-year-old boy at its center, a child of two worlds, unaware of the cosmic forces aligning around him. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Whispers from Beyond. 5 years metamorphosed Konoha's feared outcast into something altogether more puzzling. Naruto Uzumaki, once a pariah avoided in streets and shops, now commanded a curious blend of wary respect and lingering suspicion from the village inhabitants. No longer did vendors openly refuse him service, they merely served with tight smiles and minimal conversation. Children no longer fled at his approach, they simply maintained calculated distance, as one might from a docile but unpredictable animal. Progress, such as it was. 12 years old and standing before the academy's entrance on graduation day, Naruto adjusted his forehead protector with fingers that trembled not from nervousness but barely contained energy. The metal plate gleamed in morning sunlight. Hard won after his third examination attempt. Thinking profound thoughts, or merely admiring your reflection? The soft voice carried a hint of playful mockery. Naruto turned to find Hinata approaching. Her midnight blue hair now reaching past her shoulders, no longer cut in the severe bob of their first meeting. 5 years had transformed her from solemn child to graceful pre-teen. Though her eyes remained the same, deep blue, almost black, seeing far more than others realized. Neither, Naruto replied with a half-smile. Just wondering if this makes me look as impressive as I feel. Hinata studied him, head tilting slightly. Unlike other Hyuga, she never activated her Byakugan in public, a concession to her clan's discomfort with her unique vision. The headband suits you. Though your chakra's acting strange today, the green threads are particularly active. Naruto instinctively touched the obsidian pendant hidden beneath his shirt, his mother's token, never removed, even when bathing. I had another dream last night. More intense than usual. Your mysterious dream woman again? Hinata asked, falling into step beside him as they entered the Academy courtyard for their team assignment ceremony. She's not just a dream woman, Naruto murmured, glancing around to ensure no one overheard. Over years of friendship, he'd shared partial truths with Hinata about his recurring dreams. Though never explicitly confirming Hela as his mother, some secrets felt too dangerous, even for trusted friends. I know, Hinata replied simply. She never asked for details he wasn't ready to share, one of many reasons their friendship had deepened where others faltered. What happened this time? Naruto's mind drifted to the previous night's dream encounter. The throne room of Helheim had grown familiar over 5 years of seventh night visitations. Where once the towering bone architecture and green flame sconces had intimidated, now they felt almost welcoming, a macabre home away from home. Hela awaited him, as always, though no longer seated upon her antler throne. Instead, she stood before a massive circular table carved from petrified wood, upon which glowing runes shifted and rearranged themselves in patterns Naruto had learned to interpret as metaphysical currents. You've passed your mortal examination, she stated without preamble, not looking up from the table. Barely, if my observations are accurate. Naruto approached, no longer intimidated by his divine mother's imperious manner. The written portion's still not my strength, he admitted. But my clone technique finally worked. After implementing the modifications I suggested, Hela reminded him, finally looking up. Her eyes, so similar to his own when Ion stirred his power, assessed him critically. Basic illusions should be trivial for one with your lineage. They're not illusions, Naruto countered. Shadow clones are actual physical duplicates. Hela waved dismissively. A crude approximation of bilocation. In time, you'll learn to project your consciousness more efficiently. She gestured to the table. More pressing matters demand attention. Your graduation marks the beginning of more dangerous assignments. You must accelerate your training. Naruto's excitement flared. 5 years of dream training had primarily focused on control, earning to suppress rather than utilize his death touch abilities. Practical applications remained frustratingly theoretical. You mean actual techniques, combat applications? He asked eagerly. Hela's expression remained severe, though something like amusement flickered in her eyes. Impatient, like your father. The rare mention of Minato caught Naruto's attention immediately. Yes, combat applications become necessary. Your enemies multiply. Enemies. I barely leave the village. The masked one who attacked during your birth has not abandoned his interest in you, Hela revealed, Tracy. A rune on the table that shimmered and expanded to show a shadow figure in an orange spiral mask. His agents have been more active recently, observing from distance. Naruto frowned. The old man Hokage never mentioned this. Your Hokage knows only fragments of the true danger. Hela's finger moved to another section, revealing an image that made Naruto's breath catch, a massive golden city floating among stars. Heimdall's gaze turns increasingly toward Midgard. Odin suspects something of my involvement here, though your exact nature remains obscured thanks to the Nine Tails' interference. The image shifted to a towering figure on a golden throne, one-eyed and white-bearded, radiating power that made Naruto instinctively step back. Who exactly is Odin to you? Naruto asked, a question he'd avoided for years. Hela's expression hardened. My father, your grandfather, conqueror of realms, builder of Asgard's glory through blood and subjugation, before deciding peace was more politically expedient. Bitterness laced her words. When I refused to abandon our conquering ways, he banished me to Helheim, sealing me away from Asgard until his death. And if he discovers me, best case scenario, he eliminates you as an abomination, a dilution of divine bloodline with mortal weakness. Her bluntness no longer shocked him. Worst case, he attempts to use you as a weapon Agai. Nst me or mold you into another of his sycophantic warriors. Naruto absorbed this, the weight of cosmic politics far beyond village squabbles settling uncomfortably on his shoulders. So what combat techniques will help against gods and masked conspirators? Hela actually smiled, a sharp expression that transformed her severe features. Tonight, we begin death manipulation beyond mere touch. The ability to extract, direct, and eventually command the very essence of mortality. She approached him, extending her hand palm up. In it materialized a small, pulsing sphere of emerald energy. This is pure death essence, what mortals call souls, though far more fundamental. Your instinctive death touch is merely the unrefined ability to accelerate a being's journey toward this state. I don't want to kill people, Naruto stated, a boundary he'd maintained firmly despite Hela's occasional impatience with his morality. Death is inevitable for mortals, Hela countered. I'm not teaching you to kill unnecessarily, but to understand and command the transition all beings eventually make. Her expression grew serious. There will come moments where death manipulation represents your only survival option. Better to master it than be mastered by it when desperation strikes. The logic, while uncomfortable, was difficult to refute. Naruto nodded reluctantly. We begin with perception, Hela continued. Close your eyes. Feel the boundaries between vitality and decay within yourself. Naruto obeyed, focusing inward as he'd practiced during years of meditation. His normal chakra flowed blue and vibrant, while the Nine Tails power lurked red and caustic behind its seal. But there had always been a third energy, cool green threads woven throughout his system, concentrated most heavily around his heart and eyes. I feel it, he confirmed. Now extend your awareness outward. Death energy exists everywhere, in decaying matter, in the final breaths of the dying, in the memories of places where many have perished. Naruto stretched his senses beyond himself, a technique he'd never attempted before. Initially, he perceived nothing beyond his own energies. Then, gradually, he became aware of whispers. Countless hushed voices speaking simultaneously, incomprehensible in their multitude. What? His concentration faltered, eyes snapping open. I hear voices. Hela nodded, unsurprised. The dead never truly fall silent. Their essence persists, particularly in places of significance or violent transition. Learning to interpret these whispers provides valuable intelligence. There's so many, Naruto said, disturbed by the implications. Are they conscious, aware? Not as you understand consciousness, Hela explained. Most are merely echoes, impressions left upon the fabric of reality. Only the most recent or strong-willed maintain anything resembling identity. She gestured, and the whispers momentarily amplified before fading back to silence. With practice, you'll learn to filter, focus, and eventually communicate with specific essences. The remainder of the dream session involved increasingly complex perception exercises, each pushing Naruto's awareness toward death energy around him. By the time dawn approached in the waking world, he had progressed to distinguishing individual voices from the cacophony and determining approximate time of death from the clarity of the essence. As their session concluded, Hela fixed him with an unusually intense gaze. Your graduation means increased freedom of movement. It also means increased danger. I can handle myself, Naruto assured her, confidence not entirely unearned after years of training. Perhaps, Hela allowed. Nevertheless, I've arranged additional observation and guidance in the mortal realm. This was unexpected. What do you mean? You'll know when you encounter it, Hela replied cryptically. For now, remember, what I teach you must remain hidden from your Konoha authorities. They fear what they cannot control, and they cannot hope to control death's domain. With that final warning, the dream dissolved as consciousness pulled Naruto back to the waking world. Just more training, Naruto summarized for Hinata, omitting the warnings about enemies and Hela's mention of sending someone to observe him. Advanced techniques I'm not supposed to talk about. Hinata studied him with her penetrating gaze. Your chakra fluctuates when you're not telling the whole truth, she observed without accusation. But I understand secrets. We all have them. Naruto felt a pang of guilt. Of all people, Hinata deserved honesty. She had stood by him through years of isolation, sharing her own struggles with a clan that viewed her specialized Byakugan as both asset and liability. Her ability to perceive death energy made her an outcast among the tradition-bound Hyuga, much as Naruto's abilities had isolated him from Konoha at large. I'll tell you everything someday, he promised. When I understand it all myself. Hinata smiled softly. I know. She gestured toward the academy building, where students were gathering. We should join the others. Team assignments will start soon. Inside the classroom, Naruto noticed how seating arrangements reflected 5 years of gradually shifting social dynamics. No longer was he completely isolated. Hinata sat beside him as always. But Shikamaru Nara and Choji Akamichi had also drifted into his orbit over years of shared detentions and grudging acknowledgement of his improved abilities. Others maintained distance but had largely abandoned active hostility in favor of wary neutrality. Iruka entered, clipboard in hand, looking simultaneously proud and melancholy at sending his students into the larger shinobi world. Starting today, you're all officially genin of Konohagakure, he began. Your team assignments represent careful consideration of complementary abilities and temperaments. As Iruka read through team numbers and members, Naruto found himself increasingly anxious. Being separated from Hinata seemed unbearable after years of relying on her friendship and understanding. Team 7, Iruka continued, will consist of Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno. He paused, glancing toward Naruto with an unreadable expression, and Naruto Uzumaki. A mixture of relief and disappointment flooded through Naruto. Not with Hinata, but not with strangers either. Sasuke largely ignored him, which was preferable to active hostility, while Sakura had gradually shifted from childhood fear to cautious academic respect after he'd helped her with a difficult genjutsu problem the previous year. Team 8 will include Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shino Aburame. Hinata caught Naruto's eye, offering a all smile of encouragement despite her own evident disappointment at their separation. After completing assignments, Iruka cleared his throat. Your Jonin instructors will arrive after lunch. Until then, take time to connect with your new teammates. The classroom erupted into movement as students regrouped according to their assignments. Naruto approached Sasuke and Sakura, who sat together at the far side of the room, the pink-haired girl flushing with pleasure at her proximity to the last Uchiha, while Sasuke maintained his customary stoic expression. So, Naruto began, sliding into a seat across from them. I guess we're a team now. Sakura offered a hesitant smile. It seems so. Her voice carried forced cheerfulness. With Sasuke's ninjutsu expertise, my genjutsu aptitude, and she faltered. Clearly struggling to name Naruto's specialty without referencing the abilities that had earned him his unsettling reputation. My unpredictability, Naruto supplied with a wry smile. Sasuke finally acknowledged him with a measured glance. Just don't slow me down, Uzumaki. Before Naruto could respond, the classroom door slid open with unusual force. Every student turned toward the unexpected interruption, conversations faltering as a stranger entered. The woman who stood in the doorway commanded immediate attention, not through volume or dramatics, but through sheer presence. Tall and athletic, she wore standard Konoha Jonin attire, though with modifications that hinted at foreign influence, silver bracers engraved with unfamiliar symbols, a short cape-like attachment to her flak jacket. And most distinctively, intricate braids woven with metal beads in her auburn hair. Team 7, she announced without preamble, her voice carrying a subtle accent Naruto couldn't place. With me, now. Iruka blinked in surprise. Ah, Freya-san, the instructors weren't scheduled to arrive until. I operate on my own schedule, Yumino-san, the woman, Freya, interrupted smoothly. Her gaze swept the room before landing on Naruto with unsettling intensity. Team 7 has priority assignment. The Hokage has been informed. Something about her triggered Naruto's instincts. The green energy within him responded to her presence, not in alarm but in recognition, like calling to like. As he stood to join his teammates, he caught Hinata watching the stranger with an expression of troubled awareness. Hinata could see something about this woman that others couldn't. Sasuke and Sakura followed Freya from the room, with Naruto trailing slightly behind. As he passed Hinata, she whispered urgently, "Be careful, she's not what she appears." Before he could ask for clarification, Freya called from the hallway, "Uzumaki. Don't dawdle." Outside the academy, Freya led them silently through the village. Ignoring curious glances from civilians who clearly didn't recognize her as a Konoha shinobi. She finally stopped at a seldom-used training ground bordered by ancient trees. Far from typical foot traffic. Sit, she commanded, gesturing to 3 stumps arranged in a rough triangle. Once they had complied, she assessed them openly, her hazel eyes lingering longest on Naruto. I am Freya Deathwalker, Jonin instructor, recently transferred from specialized operations. I've never heard of a Jonin transfer, Sasuke observed, suspicion evident. Especially not one with a foreign accent. Freya smiled coldly. Very observant, Uchiha. I've spent considerable time in Northern Territories studying specialized combat techniques. My assignment to your team comes directly from Hokage-sama. What kind of specialized techniques? Sakura asked, scholarly curiosity temporarily overcoming her wariness. The kind that address unique tactical situations. Freya's gaze shifted meaningfully toward Naruto. Including abnormal chakra manifestations. The implication hung heavily in the air. Unlike standard Jonin introduction procedures, Freya offered no personal details, asked for no introductions from them, and proposed no team-building exercises. Instead, she produced 3 slim folders from her vest. Your first mission, she stated, distributing the folders. Effective immediately. Quote, but we just graduated, Sakura protested. Aren't we supposed to train together first? Learn teamwork exercises. Freya's expression remained impassive. His team was assembled for specific compatibility with this mission. Your individual files suggest sufficient preparation. Naruto opened his folder, scanning contents that sent an immediate chill through him. The mission parameters described investigating unusual deaths in a remote mountain village 4 days' journey from Konoha. Victims had been found desiccated, as if life essence had been forcibly extracted. Exactly the type of death associated with uncontrolled manifestations of his own abilities. This is at least B rank, Sasuke observed, frowning at the details. Genin teams start with D rank missions. As I said, Freya replied evenly, your team has specialized composition relevant to these circumstances. Naruto met her gaze directly, understanding dawning. You mean me? You think these deaths are connected to... Quote. He trailed off, unwilling to articulate his suspicions in front of teammates. To certain energy patterns, Freya confirmed obliquely. We depart in 1 hour. Pack for 10 days travel in mountain conditions. Meet at the east gate. Without further explanation, she vanished in a swirl of leaves, leaving 3 bewildered genin staring at mission Parame. Tours far beyond standard graduation expectations. Sakura broke the stunned silence. This can't be real. Fresh genin don't get sent to investigate mysterious deaths. Unless those deaths require specialized knowledge, Sasuke replied, giving Naruto a measured look. Knowledge about certain phenomena. Naruto closed his folder, mind racing. Hela had mentioned arranging, observation and guidance, in the mortal realm. The timing of this unusual Jonin's appearance couldn't be coincidental. We should prepare, he said finally. Whatever's happening, people are dying. If we can help, we should. Sasuke stood, tucking the folder into his pocket. For once, we agree, Uzumaki. Sakura looked between them, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to be left behind. I'll be ready, she promised. Though uncertainty lingered in her voice. As they separated to prepare, Naruto took a detour through the village, seeking Hinata. He found her outside the Hyuga compound, evidently waiting for her own team assignment. That Jonin, he began without preamble. What did you see about her? Hinata glanced around before answering quietly. Her chakra isn't entirely human. It has similarities to your green energy, but more refined. Controlled. She hesitated. And she was watching you specifically, even before she entered the room. I could see her chakra focused on you through the wall. Naruto nodded, suspicions confirmed. We've been assigned an immediate B-rank investigation. Mysterious deaths with unusual characteristics. Alarm flashed across Hinata's face. That's completely irregular. Do you think that she was sent to evaluate me specifically? Yes. Naruto touched his hidden pendant. I think she might be connected to my dreams. Hinata processed this with characteristic thoughtfulness. Be careful. If she's who you suspect, her agenda may not align with Konoha's interests. I will. He hesitated, then impulsively pulled Hinata into a quick hug, their first physical contact beyond occasional brushed hands. Watch out for yourself too. Something feels like it's accelerating. Hinata returned the embrace briefly before pulling away, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. I always do. And Naruto. Her dark blue eyes met his. Trust your instincts. They've guided you well so far. With a final nod, Naruto hurried toward his apartment. In his mind, Hela's warnings echoed ominously. Enemies multiplying. Odin's suspicions growing. The masked figure's continued interest. And now, a mysterious Jonin with chakra resembling his divine heritage, leading his toward depths that mirrored his own uncontrolled abilities. Whatever game was unfolding, Naruto felt certain he'd just advanced to a more dangerous level of play. The journey to Shirakawa v. Yaj unfolded in uncomfortable silence for the first day. Freya set a punishing pace, clearly testing their endurance rather than accommodating new genin limitations. Sasuke matched her stride for stride, determined to prove himself. While Sakura struggled valiantly despite clearly flagging by afternoon, Naruto maintained middle position, observing their new instructor with growing suspicion. Her movements betrayed combat training beyond standard shinobi techniques, a distinctive economy of motion, weight distribution suggesting familiarity with weapons heavier than kunai or shuriken, and a constant awareness of skyward threats most ninja rarely considered. When they finally made camp at dusk, Freya assigned tasks with military precision, still offering no personal information nor requesting theirs. Only after they'd eaten did she address the mission directly. Questions, she stated simply, stirring embers with a stick. Ask them now. Sasuke spoke first, never one to waste opportunity. These deaths, 8 victims in 3 weeks. All found with identical conditions, desiccated but no blood loss, no signs of struggle, no poison detected. What aren't you telling us about the pattern? Freya's expression remained neutral, though Naruto detected approval in her slight nod. Observant. The pattern extends beyond reported cases. Similar deaths have occurred throughout the region for approximately 2 months. Moving gradually toward this village. Like someone's traveling, leaving bodies in their wake, Sakura suggested, analytical mind engaging despite her physical exhaustion. Or something, Naruto murmured, earning a sharp glance from Freya. Precisely, Uzumaki. She reached into her vest, withdrawing a folded cloth which, when opened, revealed a strange black substance resembling ash but with an iridescent quality that caught firelight in unnatural ways. This residue was found at each scene. Standard analysis revealed nothing conclusive. And non-standard analysis, Naruto pressed, certain she had more information. Freya's eyes locked with his. It resonates with certain energy signatures. Signatures similar to fluctuations occasionally detected in your own chakra. Sakura gasped softly while Sasuke's posture stiffened. The implications hung heavily in the fire-lit clearing. You think these deaths are connected to the 9 tails? Sasuke asked directly, referring to the explanation most villagers accepted for Naruto's occasional strange phenomena. I didn't say that, Freya replied carefully. I said the energy signatures share similarities with Uzumaki's fluctuations. The source remains undetermined. Naruto studied the black residue, feeling a faint pull from the green energy within him. Not quite recognition, but a sense of distorted familiarity, like seeing a reflection in troubled water. Why bring fresh genin instead of Anbu specialists? Sakura asked, the most logical question yet. Freya closed the cloth, tucking it away before answering. Witnesses reported seeing green fire preceding the most recent death. The Hokage determined that Uzumaki's unique perspective might provide insights unavailable to standard operatives. So we're basically escort for Naruto, Sasuke concluded flatly. While you evaluate his reaction to these deaths, your contributions extend beyond escort, Uchiha, Freya countered. Your visual prowess and Haruno's analytical abilities complement the investigation. But yes, Uzumaki's response to the evidence represents a primary mission objective. The honesty, while brutal, as refreshing compared to the half-truths Naruto had navigated his entire life. He met Freya's steady gaze with his own. And if I recognize what's causing this? He asked directly. If it's to abilities I'm not supposed to acknowledge. Something like approval flickered across Freya's face. Then we proceed accordingly, with discretion appropriate to the circumstances. With that cryptic response, she stood. Rest now. First watch is mine. Uchiha, you'll relieve me at midnight. As she moved to the perimeter of their camp, Naruto felt Sasuke and Sakura's eyes on him, not fearful but intensely curious. For years, they'd existed alongside his reputation and occasional incidents without direct acknowledgement. Now, circumstances forced confrontation with the elephant in the room. "You know something about these deaths," Sasuke stated, not bothering to phrase it as a question. Naruto sighed, choosing his words carefully. "I have theories, based on certain experiences. The death touch incidents," Sakura said quietly, naming what villagers whispered when they thought he couldn't hear. "They're real, aren't they? Not just rumors." "Some incidents were exaggerated," Naruto admitted. "Others, understated." To his surprise, neither teammate responded with fear or disgust. Instead, Sasuke's expression reflected calculated assessment, while Sakura's showed acade fascination partially overriding personal concern. "Can you control it?" Sasuke asked practically. "Whatever it is." "Usually," Naruto replied honestly. "It only manifests strongly under extreme stress or specific circumstances now." He hesitated, then decided further explanation might ease their concerns. "I've been training to manage it since I was 7. Sakura's analytical mind engaged fully. "The special sessions with Hokage-sama. They weren't just about the 9 tails, were they?" "Not entirely," Naruto confirmed, revealing more than he had to anyone besides Hinata. "My condition is more complicated than village rumors suggest." Sasuke studied him with renewed interest. "If these deaths are connected to your abilities, does that mean someone else has similar powers? Or did you?" "No," Naruto interrupted firmly. "I haven't killed anyone, ever. I've been in Konoha under near constant observation for years." After a moment of tension, Sasuke nodded, accepting this. "Then we're potentially facing someone with similar abilities who doesn't share your restraint." The assessment was so matter-of-fact, so removed from the fear-based reactions Naruto had grown accustomed to, that he found himself momentarily speechless. Then, slowly, he smiled, perhaps the first genuine smile he'd ever directed at the Uchiha. "That's the most reasonable response I've ever gotten when discussing my condition," he admitted. Sasuke shrugged. "Fear is inefficient. Understanding threats provides tactical advantage." "I've read everything available about your incidents," Sakura added, somewhat sheepishly. "From a scientific perspective, they're fascinating. Energy transfer that affects biological processes without physical contact." "You researched me?" Naruto asked, unsure whether to feel violated or flattered. "I research everything unusual," Sakura replied defensively. "It's how I process the world." A laugh escaped Naruto, quiet but genuine. 5 years of isolation punctuated by Hinata's friendship. And now suddenly he had teammates discussing his death touch abilities as if they were analyzing an interesting jutsu variation rather than recoiling in superstitious fear. Perhaps team assignments hadn't been as random as they appeared. From the edge of camp, Freya observed their interaction with inscrutable expression. When Naruto glanced her way, she offred the briefest of nods before returning her attention to the darkness beyond their fire. That night, as his teammates slept, Naruto fingered his pendant and wondered precisely what Hela had set in motion by sending this mysterious Jonin into his life. Shirakawa village clung to mountainside terraces, its traditional wooden houses arranged in concentric half-circles following the natural contours of the slope. In happier times, it might have seemed picturesque. Now, with late autumn mist clinging to eaves and empty streets, it radiated foreboding. 8 deaths in a community of less than 200. Freya noted as they approached the village gate. Significant percentage. Survivors are understandably tense. "What's our cover story?" Sakura asked. "They'll be suspicious of outsiders." "No cover necessary. We're Konoha shinobi investigating unusual deaths at the Hokage's request." Freya's directness continued to surprise them. Transparency builds trust in these circumstances. Fear flourishes in information vacuums. The village headman, Takumi, met them at the gate, a wiry man with prematurely white hair and deeply lined face suggesting recent stress beyond his apparent 40 years. "You're the Konoha team?" he asked, studying their group with poorly concealed disappointment. "We expected more experienced shinobi." "Experience comes in many forms," Freya replied smoothly. "My team has specialized knowledge relevant to your situation." Takumi led them through nearly empty streets, explaining how fear had driven many villagers to barricade themselves in homes after sunset. 8 neighbors gone in 3 weeks. All found the same way, like mummies, drained of everything that made them alive. Any connection between victims? Sasuke asked. None we've found. Different ages, occupations, parts of the village. The only pattern is they all disappeared after dark and were found at dawn. And the green fire witnesses reported. Freya prompted. Takumi's expression darkened. Old man Hiroshi saw it 3 nights ago, shortly before the last victim vanished. Said it was floating above the shrine at the edge of the village, like ghostly flames dancing without heat. He shook his head. Hiroshi drinks heavily since his wife died last year, so few believed him until. Until what? Naruto pressed when the man hesitated. Until the shrine's guardian was found dead yesterday morning. Same condition as the others. That made 9 victims total. Freya's posture subtly shifted. 9 is significant, she murmured, almost to herself. Kumi showed them to the village's small inn, where they would base their investigation. After establishing that no deaths had occurred within the building, an important detail given what Naruto might perceive with his emerging abilities, Freya outlined their approach. Uchiha, Haruno, gather witness testimonies, focusing on timeline construction and environmental details preceding each death. Uzumaki, you're with me to examine the most recent scene. The team separated, with Naruto following Freya toward the village shrine, a modest structure standing apart from other buildings at the settlement's eastern edge. As they walked, he finally voiced the question that had burned since her appearance. Who are you really? He asked quietly. You're not a typical Konoha Jonin. Freya continued several paces before responding. Voice equally low. You already suspect the answer, Hela-san. The confirmation sent a jolt through Naruto. The formal address, Hela's son, removed any doubt about her connection to his mother. She sent you to watch me, he stated. To guide and evaluate, Freya corrected. Your progress concerns her greatly. Why now? After 12 years of dreams and cryptic messages. Freya glanced skyward momentarily. Circumstances evolve. Heimdall's gaze turns increasingly toward Midgard. The All-Father's ravens have been sighted circling this realm's boundaries. She fixed Naruto with an intense stare. And someone with knowledge of death manipulation is harvesting mortal essence in patterns that draw attention. They reached the shrine, a simple wooden structure. With stone guardians flanking its entrance. Yellow prohibition tape marked the area as under investigation. This isn't a coincidence, Naruto realized. Me being assigned this particular mission. Few things in your life happen by chance, Freya confirmed. Many forces move pieces around you. Your mother merely ensures some pieces are hers. Before Naruto could process this disturbing implication, Freya gestured toward the shrine. Now, demonstrate what Hela has taught you about death perception. Naruto hesitated. The Hokage's forbidden me from using abilities beyond standard shinobi techniques. The Hokage isn't here, Freya countered, and these deaths will continue without intervention from someone who understands their nature. Put that way, the decision became clearer. Naruto approached the shrine entrance, where dried blood-stained wooden planks. Centering himself, he recalled Hela's instructions from dream training, extending awareness beyond physical senses, nuancing perception to death's specific frequency. He closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and reached for the green energy within himself. Like a tuning fork resonating with specific vibrations, he ned his consciousness toward traces of death essence. The whispers came immediately, louder than any he'd experienced in training. A cacophony of voices speaking simultaneously, most unintelligible T1 rising above others with desperate clarity. Took everything. Cold hands, green light pulls, couldn't fight, 9 sacrifices for the gate. Naruto gasped, eyes snapping open as he staggered backward. Someone's harvesting death energy deliberately, he said, voice shaking. The shrine guardian was the 9th victim in a sequence. Freya showed no surprise at his ability to communicate with the deceased. 9 sacrifices for what purpose? Something about a gate, Naruto replied, struggling to interpret fragmented information. The energy is being collected, not just released. Freya's expression darkened. Show me the exact location where the body was found. Inside the shrine, blood stains marked where the guardian had fallen. Naruto knelt beside the spot, placing his palm against wooden flooring. This time, he didn't close his eyes, allowing Freya to observe as his irises shifted from blue to luminous green, the most visible manifestation of his heritage. "There's residual energy," he reported. "Vision perceiving patterns invisible to normal sight. Not just from the victim. Something else was here, something that doesn't belong on this plane. Can you trace it?" Naruto nodded slowly, following glowing footprints visible only to his altered perception. They led to the shrine's altar, where a small stone statue of a local protective deity stood. Behind it, barely noticeable, a symbol had been carved into the wooden wall, 9 interconnected circles arranged in a distinctive pattern. 9 realms, Freya breathed, recognizing the configuration instantly. This is no random killing spree. Someone attempts to create a pathway between worlds. Like Yggdrasil, Naruto asked, recalling Hela's descriptions of the world tree connecting the 9 realms. An artificial approximation, using death essence as catalyst, Freya confirmed, expression grim. Crude but potentially effective. Each sacrifice strengthens the connection. But who would? A scream F. Rom the village interrupted his question. Both turned immediately toward the sound, Naruto's enhanced senses detecting a flare of familiar energy. Death manifestation, he said unnecessarily. Active, not residual. They raced back toward the village center, where they found Sasuke and Sakura confronting a figure in dark robes outside the inn. 3 villagers lay on the ground nearby, their bodies rapidly withering as green energy visibly drained from them into the robed figure's outstretched hands. Intervention required, Freya stated flatly, hands forming unfamiliar seals. Defensive positions, Team 7. Sasuke had already engaged, his fire jutsu forcing the attacker to abandon his current victims. Sakura pulled the villagers clear, though Naruto could see 2 were already Bayo. ND saving, their life essence completely extracted. The attacker turned toward them, hood falling back to reveal a man with elaborate facial tattoos resembling the 9 realms symbol they'd discovered at the shrine. His eyes glowed with sickly green light, not the pure emerald of Hela's power, but a corrupted approximation. "The vessel arrives," he intoned, voice unnaturally resonant. "Your essence will complete the sequence." He lunged toward Naruto with inhuman speed, fingers extended like claws trailing verdant energy. Instinctively, Naruto channeled his own death energy, not to attack but to create a barrier between their powers. When their energies collided, reality itself seemed to shudder. Green light exploded outward, knocking both backward and creating a momentary tear in space. A glimpse of stars and distant worlds visible through the rift before it sealed itself. "Fascinating," the attacker murmured, recovering his stance. "You carry genuine divine essence, not merely borrowed power like mine." "Who are you?" Naruto demanded, maintaining defensive position. "What are you trying to accomplish?" The man smiled, revealing teeth filed to points. "I am Takashi, humble serve. Ant of powers beyond mortal comprehension. For decades, I've studied texts describing the 9 realms, learning to harness death energy through ritual sacrifice." His gaze shifted to Freya, recognition flickering. "But you're no ordinary shinobi, are you? You're one of them. The beings from beyond." Freya stepped forward, her disguise falling away like shed skin. Where moments before stood a Konoha Jonin, now towered a woman in silver-etched armor, spear materializing in her right hand while her left glowed with concentrated energy. "I am Freya Deathwalker, shield maiden of Helheim, servant to the goddess of death," she proclaimed, voice carrying otherworldly resonance. "Your blasphemous approximation of divine passage ends now." Takashi's expression shifted from confidence to uncertainty. "Helheim, not Asgard." He looked between Freya and Naruto, comprehension dawning. "Then the boy is none of your concern," Freya interrupted, leveling her spear. "Release your stolen essence and face judgment. Or perish where you stand." Sasuke and Sakura watched this exchange with undisguised shock, clearly struggling to process the transformation of their Jonin instructor and the implications of her proclamation. Takashi laughed, a sound tinged with madness. "Too late. The 9th sacrifice is complete. The gate forms even now." He clapped his hands together, and the stolen death essence erupted from his body, streaming upward to form a swirling vortex above the village square. The vortex expanded, revealing stars and cosmic debris beyond, a tear in reality growing larger by the second. What have you done? Freya demanded, genuine alarm breaking through her composed demeanor. Created passage to divine realms, Takashi replied, arms spread in triumph. My research suggested 9 sacrifices would suffice. But controlling the destination proved imprecise. You fool, Freya snarled. You haven't opened a path to Asgard. That's the void between realms, the space where things far worse than gods dwell. As if confirming her assessment, something massive and serpentine began moving within the portal, a shadowy form with glowing eyes and glistening scales visible in brief flashes. We need to close it, Naruto stated, instinctively understanding the danger. Before whatever that is comes through. Freya nodded grimly. The gate formed from stolen death essence. It can be unmade the same way. She turned to Naruto. You must reclaim and redirect the energy. I don't know how, Naruto admitted. Hela only taught me perception, not manipulation. Theory becomes necessity. Freya replied without sympathy. The alternative is cosmic abomination descending upon this village. Focus on your connection to death essence. Command, don't request. Naruto looked toward his teammates, who stood watching with expressions ranging from confusion to determination. Whatever you can do it fast, Sasuke urged, activating his Sharingan. That thing is getting closer. Drawing deep breath, Naruto reached for the green energy within himself, not the cautious, measured connection he'd practiced, but a full embrace of his heritage. The pendant against his chest grew cold, then hot, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat as power surged through his system. His eyes shifted fully to Hela's emerald, his skin taking on slight luminescence as death energy manifested around him invisible aura. Extending both hands toward the vortex, he focused not on the mechanics of the technique but on the fundamental truth Hela had emphasized. Death energy responded to legitimate authority. And his bloodline carried the highest authority in that domain. Return, he commanded, voice layered with power beyond his years. You belong to Helheim's throne. To me. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then, gradually, tendrils of green energy began separating from the vortex, responding to his call. As the first essence touched his outstretched fingers, Naruto gasped, the consciousness of the sacrificed victims momentarily flooding his awareness before settling into ordered pattern. More, Freya urged, take it all. Gritting his teeth against the mental strain, Naruto pulled harder, drawing death essence back from the portal in accelerating streams. The vortex began shrinking, its connection to the void weakening as its power source diminished. Takashi screamed in rage, launching himself at Naruto to interrupt the process. Before he could connect, Sasuke intercepted with flying kick that sent the cultist sprawling. Focus on the portal, the Uchiha ordered. We'll handle this fool. Sakura joined him, kunai at ready. Whatever you're doing, it's working. Indeed, the portal had diminished to half its original size, the serpentine N. Titty beyond thrashing in apparent frustration as its passage narrowed. Death essence continued flowing into Naruto, far more than his body could safely contain. His skin cracked in places, emerald lig. HT shining through light contained lightning. I can't hold it all, he gasped, the accumulated energy threatening to tear him apart. There's too much. Freya stepped beside him, placing armored hand on his shoulder. You don't need to contain it. Direct it. There. She pointed to Takashi, who struggled against Sasuke and Sakura's joint restraint. Return it to the one who stole it, multiplied by his malice. Understanding flowed between them. Naruto adjusted his focus, channeling the overwhelming energy not inward but outward, a concentrated stream directed at the cultist who had murdered 9 innocents for his misguided ritual. Takashi's eyes widened in horror as death essence, the very power he had harvested, surged toward him in volumes beyond human capacity to endure. When it struck, he didn't even have time to scream. His body collapsed inward, flesh and bone and spirit compressed into singularity before imploding with silent finality, leaving nothing but a scorch mark on cobblestones. With the energy redirected and its harvester eliminated, the portal collapsed upon itself, reality sealing shut with thunderclap that shook the entire village. Naruto fell to his knees, completely drained, eyes returning to their normal blue-green as his heritage's manifestation receded. Freya's armor similarly faded, Jonin disguise reasserting itself as she knelt beside him. Well executed, Hellison, she murmured. Quiet approval in her voice. Your mother will be pleased with your progress. Those people, Naruto whispered, haunted by momentary connection to the victims whose essence had passed through him. I felt them, their confusion, their pain. Death comes to all mortals eventually, Freya replied, echoing Hela's philosophy. You granted them proper passage rather than exploitation. It's more than most receive. Sasuke and Sakura approached cautiously, their expressions suggesting internal struggle between ingrained skepticism and undeniable evidence of supernatural events they'd just witnessed. I think, Sasuke said with remarkable understatement, you owe us an explanation, Uzumaki. Naruto looked toward Freya, who offered minimal guidance. Partial truths serve present necessity. Rising unsteadily to his feet, Naruto faced his teammates. After years of hiding, of half-truths and evasions, the prospect of honesty, even limited, felt surprisingly liberating. The Nine Tails isn't the only thing sealed within me, he began carefully. I also carry heritage from a being not of this world. The goddess of death, Sakura supplied, her analytical mind connecting fragments of what she'd witnessed and overheard. That's what she called you, Hela-san. Naruto nodded slowly. My mother is Hela, ruler of Helheim, one of the 9 realms beyond our world. The death touch incidents throughout my childhood were manifestations of powers I inherited from her. Rather than disbelief, Sasuke's expression reflected calculating reassessment. And her, he gestured toward Freya, my combat instructor and observer, Naruto explained. Sent to evaluate my development and apparently to help with this situation. Freya inclined her head slightly. Your world periodically attracts attention from beyond its boundaries. This particular intrusion required specialized intervention. So there are gods watching our world? Sakura asked, scientific curiosity visibly wrestling with ingrained skepticism. Among other entities, Freya confirmed. Most maintain distance, but boundaries occasionally weaken, allowing passage or influence between realms. Villagers had begun emerging from buildings, drawn by the portal's thunderous collapse. Freya straightened, resuming full Jonin persona. This conversation continues later, she stated firmly. For now, a modified explanation for these events is required. The official report will indicate a missing nin using forbidden life-draining techniques was neutralized by Team 7's coordinated effort. And the portal, Sasuke pressed. The armor. Your proclamation about Helheim, mass genjutsu effect from the enemy's techniques, Freya replied smoothly. Perception distortion affecting witnesses. The explanation was paper-thin, but provided plausible deniability for events too difficult to reconcile with standard shinobi understanding. As Freya moved to address approaching villagers, Sakura turned to Naruto. This doesn't change anything, she said quietly, surprising him. About our team, I mean. If anything, it explains a lot. Sasuke merely studied him with renewed interest. Your abilities, can you control them completely now? Not completely, Naruto admitted. But better than before. Today was exceptional circumstances. The Uchiha nodded thoughtfully. Useful in the right situations. Coming from Sasuke, this practical assessment represented significant acceptance. As they joined Freya in managing the aftermath, Naruto felt something shift fundamentally in his existence. For the first time, people who mattered had witnessed his true nature and responded not with fear but with practical adaptation. His heritage, at least partially revealed, hadn't driven them away. Perhaps integration of his dual nature wasn't as impossible as he'd always feared. That night, as the team rested in the village inn before their return journey, Naruto dreamed not of Helheim's throne room but of a quiet glade where Hela awaited in simpler attire than her usual regalia. You performed admirably, she stated without preamble. Freya reports your instinctive command of death essence exceeded expectations. You knew, Naruto accused. About the cultist. The ritual. You arranged this entire mission. Hela neither confirmed nor denied the charge. The threat was real. The response necessary. Your growth accelerates appropriately. I revealed my heritage to my teammates, Naruto informed her. Partially, at least, as anticipated. Some true THS become necessary as your power develops. Hela approached, studying him with unexpected intensity. The void serpent glimpsed through the portal concerns me, however. Such entities should not find Midgard so easily accessible. What was it? A lesser cousin to Jormungandr, perhaps. Or something older still. She waved dismissively. The greater concern is what its presence signifies. Bound. Areas between realms grow increasingly unstable. Your training must accelerate accordingly. What aren't you telling me? Naruto pressed, sensing deeper currents beneath her apparent satisfaction with his progress. Hela's expression shifted subtly, perhaps the closest thing to maternal concern she was capable of displaying. Forces gather, my son. Some aware of your existence, others yet ignorant. But moving in patterns that will inevitably lead to discovery. She gestured, creating a floating image of the masked figure from his birth. This one's agents grow bolder. He seeks power beyond more. Tall comprehension to reshape reality itself. The image shifted to show Odin upon his golden throne, while the All-Father's attention increasingly turns toward disturbances in Yggdrasil's structure. Disturbances your very existence contributes to. What do you want from me? Naruto asked directly, tired of cryptic warnings without clear direction. Survival, primarily, Hela replied with surprising candor. Following that, strength sufficient to claim your birthright when circumstances demand it. And what birthright is that, exactly? The question had lurked unasked for years. Hela's smile turned predatory. Why? Rule of Helheim upon my ascension to Asgard's throne, of course. A prince requires a kingdom. The casual declaration of cosmic ambition momentarily stole Naruto's voice. When he recovered, he asked the only question that mattered to his immediate existence. And if I don't want a kingdom? If I just want to be a shinobi of Konoha? Then you play a dangerous game. Woefully insufficient understanding of the board, Hela replied coldly. You are my son, Odin's grandchild, the Nine Tails vessel. Your existence represents cosmic confluence that cannot be ignored, regardless of your childish preferences. Before Naruto could argue further, she softened marginally. But your immediate path remains your choice. Serve Konoha. Protect your precious people. Lock your strength through these connections and conflicts. Her expression turned serious. Just understand that larger currents move beneath these smaller ponds. As the dream began fading with approaching dawn, Hela offered a final instruction. Freya remains assigned to your team. Trust her guidance in matters beyond mortal ken, but form your own judgments in all things. You are neither fully divine nor merely mortal. Your unique perspective may yet reveal options neither I nor your Hokage have considered. Naruto woke with the first light of morning, her words echoing in his mind. Outside his window, a raven perched on the inn's roof ridge, watching him with unnaturally intelligent eyes before taking flight toward the distant horizon. Boundaries thinning, forces gathering, birthright waiting. Yet as he prepared to rejoin his teammates for the journey home, Naruto found himself focusing not on cosmic machinations but on the simple reality that for the first time in his life, Opal, who knew his true nature, had accepted him nonetheless. Perhaps that represented the most significant boundary crossed of all. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, The Goddess Watches. Asgard's golden iris pierced the cosmic mist of Yggdrasil's upper branches, eternal sunlight gleaming from surfaces that had never known tarnish or decay. Within the observatory at the edge of the Rainbow Bridge, Heimdall stood unmoving. Amber eyes fixed upon distant stars. For thousands of years, the all-seeing guardian had maintained his vigilance, observing the 9 realms with unfailing attention to irregularities in the cosmic order. Today, his gaze focused on Midgard, specifically, a small island nation where disturbances had become increasingly difficult to ignore. What troubles Asgard's watchmen? Resonant voice preceded its owner as Odin All-Father approached, his aging but powerful frame draped in ceremonial armor, Gungnir clasped in one hand. Heimdall did not turn. Disturbances in Midgard, my king. The same region as before. Quote, the hidden shinobi lands, Odin stated, coming to stand beside his loyal sentinel. Where death essence flared unnaturally some months past. The patterns grow more distinct, Heimdall confirmed. Something, or someone, manipulates death energy in ways no mortal should command. Yet my vision cannot penetrate directly to the source. It remains veiled. Odin's single eye narrowed, ancient wisdom perceiving implications beyond the immediate report. What of my daughter? Has Hela's presence been detected near these disturbances? Hela remains in Helheim, bound by your decree. Yet, Heimdall hesitated, choosing his words with characteristic precision. Agents of her realm have been observed traveling the hidden paths between worlds. Their destinations blur at crucial moments, suggesting deliberate concealment. The All-Father's weathered face remained impassive, though the knuckles gripping Dingnur widened slightly. Hela cannot directly challenge my edict without consequences even she would hesitate to provoke. Yet she has always sought loopholes in my commands. He turned his gaze toward the cosmos stretching beyond Asgard's boundaries. What game does Death's Queen play on Midgard? There is more, my king, Heimdall continued. The mortal realm's inherent barriers against external interference have weakened in specific locations. The incident involving the Void Serpent's attempted passage was not isolated. The boundaries thin, particularly around this Konoha, a convergence point, Odin murmured, ancient eyes seeing patterns within patterns. Cosmic forces align there, drawing attention from beyond mortal awareness. His expression hardened. We must investigate more directly. The time for distant observation has passed. The Einherjar stand ready at your command, Heimdall offered. Odin shook his head, strategic mind calculating more subtle approaches. No, military intervention would disrupt the very patterns we seek to understand. This requires precision. He turned, cape billowing behind him. Send for my daughter. Not Hela, but Sigyn. Heimdall raised an eyebrow, the most expression the stoic guardian typically displayed. The All-Mother's ward, she has never undertaken a mission beyond the 9 realms. Precisely why she serves our purpose. Hela knows my son's signatures, Thor's brashness, Loki's cunning. But Sigyn's presence may escape her notice long enough to discern the truth. And if this truth proves problematic? Heimdall asked carefully. Odin's eye gleamed with ancient power. Then we shall address the problem before it grows beyond containment. The stability of the 9 realms supersedes all other concerns. As the All-Father departed, Heimdall returned to his vigilance. Amber gaze tracking disturbances across cosmic distances. Somewhere on Midgard, death essence flickered with unmistakable pattern, like Hela's signature, yet different, less refined but potentially more adaptive. Like a bloodline diluted yet strengthened through transformation. In Helheim's darkened throne room, Hela lounged sideways across her antlered seat, one leg draped over the armray. Saint in deliberate posture of casual indifference that belied the intensity of her attention. Before her, a shimmering green pool suspended in midair displayed scenes from Midgard, specifically, Training Ground 7 within Konoha, where Team 7 engaged in combat exercises under Freya's exacting instruction. His form improves, Hela observed, watching Naruto execute a complex maneuver combining shadow clones with subtle death essence manipulation, invisible to normal perception but clearly evident to her divine sight. Though he still hesitates before applying lethal techniques. Leah, Stan, Ding motionless beside the throne as always, offered no opinion on this assessment. After a moment's silence, she asked, has the All-Father's surveillance been noted? Hela's lips curved in cold amusement. Heimdall grows increasingly frustrated with his inability to perceive my son directly. The 9 tails essence combined with my bloodline creates natural interference even the all-seeing guardian struggles to penetrate. She waved one hand, and the viewing pool shifted to show Asgard's observatory, where Heimdall stood at his eternal post. Though his attention grows more focused. The Void Serpent incident drew notice we could have avoided. The situation was unforeseen, Leah noted. Indeed, mortal dabbling in cosmic forces rarely produces predictable outcomes. Hela straightened, her casual posture replaced by regal alertness as the viewing pool revealed another image, Odin himself, striding through Asgard's golden halls with purpose. Father grows suspicious. His conversatio, with Heimdall suggests direct investigation may soon commence. Through conventional means. No. Hela's eyes narrowed. Odin chooses subtlety when brute force might alert his target. He will say, ND agents capable of blending among mortals. Her expression darkened. My brothers are too obvious a choice. Thor lacks any capacity for subterfuge, and Loki's magical signature would trigger my wards immediately. Hela rose, approaching the viewing pool with calculated steps. Expand surveillance radius. Monitor all translocation points within 100 leagues of Konoha. Alert me to any divine signature crossing between realms. As Leah complied, Hela studied her son's image with intensity that might have been mistaken for maternal pride in any being less ruthlessly pragmatic. Naruto's training accelerates appropriately, but Odin's involvement would force premature confrontation. We must delay discovery until his abilities stabilize. The Chunin examinations approach, Leah observed. His participation will draw attention beyond Konoha's boundaries. Yes, an opportunity and vulnerability simultaneously. Hela tapped one elongated fingernail against her throne's armrest, the sound unnaturally resonant. Freya's reports indicate his teammates have adapted surprisingly well to partial knowledge of his heritage. Perhaps additional support during these examinations would prove beneficial. Another agent, Leah inquired. Hela's smile would have chilled mortal blood. Of sorts. Someone capable of recognizing Asgardian interference should it manifest. She waved her hand, dissolving the viewing pool. Make preparations. We must ensure my son remains shielded from Odin's gaze until he's strong enough to withstand the scrutiny. In Konoha, oblivious to cosmic surveillance from multiple divine entities, Naruto ducked beneath Sasuke's high kick before rolling sideways to avoid Sakura's follow-up strike. 2 months of intensive training under Freya had transformed Team 7's dynamics. No longer 3 individuals awkwardly cooperating, but a coordinated unit exploiting complementary abilities. Your defense improves, Freya observed from the sidelines. Her Konoha Jonin disguise maintained for public interactions though dropped during private training. But you still telegraph intentions through subtle energy fluctuations. Naruto grimaced, creating G3 shadow clones that immediately engaged his teammates, buying momentary reprieve. The green energy responds to emotions. It's harder to control during combat. Precisely why we practice, Freya replied without sympathy. Your heritage manifests strongest under stress. Mastery requires maintaining control under precisely such conditions. Since returning from the Shirakawa mission, Team 7's training had evolved dramatically. While maintaining appearances of standard genin development for village records, their private sessions included specialized instruction addressing each member's unique capabilities, particularly Naruto's increasingly active death manipulation abilities. Sasuke launched a fireball jutsu that dispersed Naruto's clones in puffs of smoke. As the real Naruto prepared counterattack, he felt the familiar cold surge of his heritage stirring, death essence responding to combat stimulus. Rather than suppressing it completely as he'd done for years, he now practiced Freya's techniques for controlled channeling. Extending his right hand, he allowed minimal death energy to flow through his chakra network into his palm, not enough to manifest visibly, but sufficient to create localized effect. When Sakura's kunai sliced toward him, he didn't dodge but instead swept his hand through its trajectory. The metal blade dulled instantly, its molecular structure aging decades within seconds as death essence accelerated entropy. When it struck his shoulder guard, it crumbled like ancient rust. Effective application, Freya noted with grudging approval. Huff excessive energy expenditure for single projectile neutralization. Sakura didn't miss a beat, seamlessly transitioning to taijutsu while analyzing what she'd witnessed. Localized temporal acceleration affecting inorganic material. She commented between strikes. Can you control the radius? Working on it, Naruto replied, blocking her combination. His teammates' scientific interest in his abilities rather than superstitious fear continued to be refreshingly novel. Sasuke circled behind, Sharingan activated to track subtle energy movements. Your eyes shift green microseconds before application, he observed clinically, telegraphing to visual dujutsu users. This pragmatic feedback exemplified their evolved dynamic. Once his heritage was partially revealed, Sasuke and Sakura had approached it as tactical information rather than supernatural revelation, analyzing applications, limitations, and strategic integration into team operations. Freya called halt after another 10 minutes of intensive exchange. Adequate for today. Uzumaki, continue essence control exercises. Uchiha, your fire techniques lack necessary intensity against opponents with enhanced defenses. Haruno, your analytical abilities remain your strength, but physical conditioning requires improvement. Her blunt assessments had initially stung, but they'd grown accustomed to Freya's uncompromising standards. Behind her drill instructor exterior lay genuine commitment to their survival against threats far beyond standard shinobi conflicts. As they gathered equipment, Sakura asked the question they'd been anticipating all week. Freya-sensei, will you recommend us for the Chunin examinations? The Valkyrie's expression revealed nothing. The examinations commence in 3 weeks. Your technical capabilities meet minimum requirements. She paused deliberately. However, certain complications accompany your participation. You mean me, Naruto stated directly. My abilities might be exposed under extreme stress. Freya inclined her head slightly. The preliminary rounds occur under controlled observation. Foreign shinobi, dignitaries, and specialized observers will attend. Heightened scrutiny increases risk of detection, both of your heritage and potentially of influences beyond standard shinobi awareness. You think someone might recognize what Naruto's abilities really are, Sasuke translated. That possibility cannot be dismissed, Freya confirmed. Particularly given recent intelligence. This caught their attention immediately. What intelligence? Sakura pressed. Freya surveyed their surroundings before responding, voice lowered. Unusual visitors have been detected approaching Fire Country borders. Individuals whose chakra signatures display irregularities. Consistent with extraplanar origin. Asgardians? Naruto asked, automatically touching the concealed pendant beneath his shirt. Unconfirmed, but probable, Freya replied. Which intro? Duce's additional variables to your examination participation. Sasuke's expression remained calculating. Regardless of these complications, the examinations represent necessary advancement. Remainen. Genin limits mission access and development opportunities. Additionally, Sakura added, refusing participation would itself draw attention. Particularly given our successful B-rank completion. Naruto appreciated their pragmatism. After initial adjustments to revelations about cosmic forces beyond shinobi understanding, his teammates had integrated this knowledge into their worldview with remarkable adaptability. Your assessment has merit, Freya acknowledged. I will submit recommendation with appropriate contingency planning. She fixed Naruto with penetrating stare. Your mother maintains awareness of these developments. Expect dream communication tonight. With that cryptic statement, she dismissed them for individual afternoon training. As Sasuke and Sakura departed, Naruto lingered, waiting until they were beyond earshot before addressing Freya directly. You're concerned about something specific, he observed. Beyond just examination scrutiny. Freya's expression softened marginally, the closest she came to displaying personal investment rather than professional assessment. Your development accelerates appropriately, but timing grows problematic. Multiple entities now monitor this region with increasing focus. Because of me, not exclusively. Cosmic convergences occur independently of individual catalysts. She gestured toward the Hokage monument. His village was founded upon a nexus point where Yggdrasil's roots run particularly close to Midgard's surface. Why do you think so many exceptional shinobi originate here? Power recognizes power, even unconsciously. This was new information. You're saying Konoha itself is cosmically significant. All realms contain thin points where boundaries between worlds naturally weaken. Your people buoy this village upon such a location, perhaps guided by instinct rather than understanding. Freya's expression turned serious, which makes developments here relevant to interests beyond shinobi politics. Naruto absorbed this, connecting fragments from years of dream training with Hela. The ancient shrine she sometimes mentions, it's here in Konoha, isn't it? Indeed. Hidden in plain sight, its significance forgotten by modern inhabitants. Freya glanced skyward briefly. Your heritage draws attention to a location already significant. A concerning combination. Before Naruto could ask further questions, she straightened formally. Enough. Continue chakra control exercises. Focus particularly on suppressing visual manifestations of your heritage during technique application. Recognizing dismissal, Naruto nodded and departed, mind churning with implications. As he walked toward the village center, he diverted course toward the Hyuga compound. If anyone could provide insight on Konoha's hidden significance, it would be Hinata with her unique perception abilities. The Hyuga compound's traditional architecture conveyed ancient dignity through precision rather than ostentation, clean lines, perfectly maintained gardens, and guards whose formal postures belied lethal capability. Naruto had long since graduated from being stopped at the outer gate, though the guard's ite nods still carried undertones of wariness. He found Hinata in the East Garden, practicing modified gentle fist forms that incorporated her unique perceptive abilities. Unlike standard Hyuga techniques focusing on chakra point strikes, Her movements emphasized flowing transitions between dimensional planes that only she could perceive. She sensed his presence immediately, completing her NCE before turning with warm smile that transformed her serious features. Naruto, I didn't expect you today. Training finished early, he replied, settling on the stone bench that had become his usual spot during visits. And I wanted your perspective on something. Hinata joined him, dark blue hair now reaching mid-back, elegantly tied with silver cord that matched her lavender-gray training attire. At 12, she carried herself with grace that made her appear older, though moments of childhood shyness still emerged around Naruto. You seem troubled, she observed, those unusual eyes, different from typical Hyuga white, studying him with perception that went beyond physical sight. Freya-sensei mentioned something about Konoha being built on a significant location. A place where boundaries between worlds are naturally thinner. He glanced around to ensure privacy before continuing. Something about Yggdrasil's roots running close to the surface here. Hinata's expression shifted to deep thoughtfulness. That explains certain observations I've made with my Byakugan. What observations? She hesitated, organizing thoughts before responding. There are currents beneath Konoha that don't correspond to normal chakra networks or natural energy flows. They run deepest beneath the Hokage monument, but branch throughout the village in patterns resembling a great tree's root system. Naruto leaned forward, intensely interested. Can you see where they converge? Or where they're strongest? The primary convergence point lies beneath the stone face monument itself. But there's a secondary nexus beneath the old shrine in the eastern forest. Her expression grew curious. Why? What does this have to do with your training? Naruto struggled with how much to reveal. Though Hinata knew more about his dual nature than anyone besides his teammates, he'd never explicitly confirmed Hela as his mother. I think, he began carefully, these convergence points might be connected to certain abilities I'm developing. And possibly to why Konoha attracts unusual attention from beyond. Hinata processed this with characteristic patience. Unlike most, ever pressed for more than he was ready to share, content with gradual revelations as trust deepened. The Eastern Shrine has always felt strange to me, she admitted. When I look at it with my Byakugan, I see overlapping realities, as if multiple versions of the same location exist simultaneously. Could you show me? Naruto asked. This shrine might be important for understanding what's happening. Hinata nodded without hesitation. It's abandoned now, hasn't been maintained for generations. The Hyuga records mention it was once dedicated to guardians beyond the veil, though the meaning has been lost. As they prepared to depart, a Hyuga branch family member appeared at the garden entrance. Hinata-sama, your father requests your presence in the main hall. A visitor has arrived seeking audience with clan leadership. Hinata's brow furrowed slightly. Unexpected interruptions to her schedule were rare. Did father mention the visitor's identity? A foreign diplomat, apparently. Lady Sigyn of Asgard, I believe. Naruto froze, the name triggering immediate recognition from Hela's teachings about the Nine Realms. Asgard, Odin's Golden Kingdom. The realm from which his mother had been banished. Hinata, attuned to his reactions after years of friendship, noticed his sudden tension. This visitor is significant to you, she observed quietly. Potentially, he admitted, keeping his voice low. Asgard isn't just another hidden village or distant nation. It's elsewhere. Understanding dawned in Hinata's expression, one of the few people who might comprehend what else where truly meant given her unique perceptive abilities. Perhaps I should meet this diplomat, she suggested. With you accompanying as my guest. The prospect sent conflicting impulses through Naruto. Curiosity warred with caution. Direct contact with an Asgardian might provide valuable information but also risked exposing his heritage prematurely. Before he could decide, Hela's pendant grew suddenly cold against his chest, a warning signal he'd experienced only rarely. Whatever this Sigyn represented, his mother clearly considered her presence concerning. I think observation from distance might be wiser initially, he suggested, until we understand why an Asgardian diplomat would specifically seek the Hyuga clan. Hinata nodded, understanding his caution. I'll attend as required and share what I learn. Meet me at Training Ground 9 at sunset. Perfect, Naruto agreed. As she departed toward the main house, he took more circuitous exit, mind racing with implications. Free. YJA had mentioned unusual visitors approaching Fire Country borders. An Asgardian arriving openly, presenting diplomatic credentials rather than infiltrating covertly, suggested strategy beyond simple surveillance. Whatever game unfolded between cosmic powers, its pieces now moved openly on Konoha's board. The Hokage's office reflected its occupant's nature, functional rather than ostentatious. With scrolls and documents organized in controlled chaos that nonetheless permitted the third to locate any specific item within moments. Hiruzen Sarutobi, pipe-sending lazy smoke curls toward the ceiling, regarded his unusual visitor with carefully measured expression that revealed nothing of his internal assessment. Across the desk sat a young woman who by appearance might have been in her early 20s by human standards. Though something in her bearing suggested far greater age, her attire combined elegant formality with subtle martial elements, a silver-blue dress with geometric RNS beneath a fitted half-jacket whose high collar and fitted sleeves contained hidden reinforcement. Her hair, platinum blonde with unusual silver streaks despite her youth, was styled in complex IDED arrangement suggesting ceremonial significance. Most striking were her eyes, pale gold irises with unusual luminosity, studying the Hokage with intelligence that seemed to catalog and analyze every detail of her surroundings. Lady Sigyn, Hiruzen began, setting aside his pipe. While Konoha welcomes diplomatic exchange, your arrival without prior communication through standard channels creates certain procedural complications. Quote, the woman smiled, a measured expression conveying politeness without warmth. I understand, Hokage-sama. My delegation's mission developed urgency that unfortunately precluded standard protocols. King Odin sends his personal regards and assurances that our presence serves mutual interests. Her voice carried subtle accent similar to Freya's, though with different cadence, more formal and precise, each word selected with apparent deliberation. And these mutual interests involve seeking audience with our Hyuga clan leadership. Hiruzen asked mildly, Huff his sharp eyes missed nothing of her reactions. The Hyuga clan's visual prowess has reputation that extends beyond Fire Country borders, Sigyn replied smoothly. Their unique perception ability ties may assist with certain anomalies our researchers have detected in this region. Anomalies of what nature? Disturbances in natural energy patterns. Fluctuations that may indicate previously undocumented chakra manifestations. She leaned forward slightly. My understanding is that Konoha has experienced unusual incidents over recent years, phenomena defying standard explanation. The implication hung in the air between them. Though never stated explicitly, the reference to Naruto's occasional incidents was unmistakable. Hiruzen's expression remained impassive. Every shinobi village contains classified information regarding unique abilities and bloodlines. Diplomatic courtesy typically respects such boundaries. Of course, Sigyn acknowledged with slight incline of her head. Quote, we seek cooperative investigation rather than intelligence extraction. Asgard offers knowledge exchange rather than one-sided inquiry. Asgard, Hiruzen repeated thoughtfully. I confess limited familiarity with your nation. Our records contain surprisingly minimal information regarding your homeland's location, governance structure, or military capabilities. Something like amusement flickered in Sigyn's golden eyes. An understandable gap in your intelligence. Asgard maintains deliberate isolation from general international affairs, though we monitor developments with interest. The full dance of diplomatic half-truths continued for another 30 minutes, with neither revealing significant information while maintaining appearance of productive exchange. Finally, Hiruzen placed his hands flat on the desk, a subtle signal the meeting approached conclusion. I will permit your diplomatic contact with the Hyuga clan, with appropriate escorts and protocols observed, he decided. Beyond that, your delegation's activities within Fire Country will require prior approval and supervision. Most reasonable, Sigyn agreed, rising gracefully. We anticipate a productive exchange beneficial to both our peoples. As she turned to depart, Hiruzen added casually, Lady Sigyn, one final question. Does your diplomatic mission include interest in any specific Konoha shinobi beyond the Hyuga clan? She paused at the doorway, expression revealing nothing. Our interest remains focused on energy anomalies rather than specific individuals, Hokage-sama. Though should your administrative On wished to introduce us to shinobi with relevant expertise, we would welcome such facilitation. After she departed with her Anbu escort, Hiruzen remained motionless, analyzing the encounter from multiple angles before reaching decision. With practiced motion, he activated privacy seals embedded in his office walls before summoning his assistant. Locate Kakashi Hatake immediately, he instructed. Then arrange surveillance on our Asgardian visitors, discreet but comprehensive. And, he hesitated briefly, inform Freya Deathwalker that her presence is requested for specialized consultation. As his orders were acknowledged, the Hokage turned to gaze through his window toward the village beyond, experienced eyes settling on the distant training ground where Team 7 typically practiced. Whatever game unfolded with these foreign diplomats, Naruto Uzumaki stood at its center, a position the boy had occupied since birth, though for increasingly complex reasons. Twilight paint. Ed Konoha's forest in purple shadows as Naruto waited at the designated meeting point. Training Ground 9, unlike the open fields of other practice areas, featured dense woodland and natural rock formations creating multiple elevation levels, ideal for observation without detection. He sensed Hinata's approach before seeing her, a skill developed through years of friendship. She moved with uncharacteristic haste, expression conveying urgency beyond her typical composure. That bad? He asked as she joined him on the elevated stone outcropping. Not bad, she corrected, slightly breathless. Concerning. Complex. She settled beside him, organizing thoughts before continuing. The Asgardian diplomat. She's not what she appears. In what way? Her chakra, if that's even the right term, ists on multiple dimensional planes simultaneously, Hinata explained, frustrated by language limitations in describing what her specialized Byakugan perceived. Similar to your green energy, but different, more structured, less fluid. And she carries weapons that don't physically manifest but exist as potential energy within her chakra network. Naruto absorbed this, connecting information with what Hela had taught him about Asgardians. Did she mention why she wanted to meet the Hyuga specifically? Officially, she requested our assistance identifying unusual energy signatures throughout Fire Country. She brought scrolls showing patterns of what she called dimensional thinning, locations where boundaries between realities have supposedly weakened. And unofficially, Hinata's expression grew troubled. She asked very specific questions about visual bloodlines capable of perceiving beyond normal sensory range. Whether any Hyuga had ever reported seeing manifestations of green energy, particularly around the Hokage Monument or Eastern Forest Shrine. Naruto felt cold certainty settle in his stomach. She's looking for me, or at least, for evidence of my heritage. I believe so, Hinata agreed. Though she never mentioned you directly. Just anomalous energy signatures similar to incidents recorded in northern territories. What did your father tell her? Very little. Father may have his faults, but he protects clan secrets fiercely. A small smile touched Hinata's lips. He claimed our visual prowess is strictly limited to chakra network observation within physical bodies, nothing beyond. Naruto couldn't help returning her smile. The irony of Hiashi Hyuga deliberately downplaying his clan's abilities when he typically emphasized their superiority was not lost on either of them. There's something else, Hinata continued, expression growing serious again. When I activated my Byakugan during the meeting, discreetly, behind sleeve, I saw something in her chakra pattern. A connection, like a tether stretching beyond our dimension, leading back to something vast. Odin, Naruto murmured, remembering Hela's descriptions of the All-Father's Abili. Tai to maintain awareness through his agents. She reports directly to him. Hinata nodded. Whatever she seeks, it's important enough for constant communication with her leader. The implications settled heavily between them. After years of relative anonymity, cosmic attention now focused on Konoha, and potentially on Naruto specifically, from multiple directions. Hela's warnings about Odin's eventual interest no longer seemed distant theoretical concerns but imminent reality. I need to speak with Freya, Naruto decided, and probably expect another dream visit from my mother. The last words emerged hesitantly, the first time he'd explicitly confirmed Hela's relationship to him in Hinata's presence. If Hinata noticed the significance of this admission, she didn't comment directly. What about the shrine? It seems connected to all this. We'll investigate tomorrow, Naruto promised. But carefully. If this shrine truly represents a thin point between worlds, it might be monitored from multiple sides now. As they prepared to separate, Hinata hesitated, then asked the question that clearly troubled her most. Naruto, if Asgardians are looking for you, what happens when they find you? The pendant against his chest seemed to pulse once, as if responding to the question's significance. I don't know, he admitted. But I think we're approaching the point where hiding becomes impossible. One way or another, confrontation with my mother's family seems inevitable. Hinata's expression reflected concern but also steadfast loyalty. Whatever comes, you're not facing it alone. Remember that. The simple promise carried weight beyond its words, perhaps the most important constant in Naruto's complex existence. Whatever cosmic forces gathered, whatever divine politics unfolded around him, he had formed connections in this world that anchored him beyond his supernatural heritage. As Hinata departed toward the Hyuga compound, Naruto remained briefly on the stone outcropping, gazing toward the Hokage monument illuminated by rising moonlight. Somewhere beneath that mountain, according to both Freya and Hinata, cosmic forces converged, Yggdrasil's roots intertwining with the foundations of the village he called home. His contemplation was interrupted by sudden awareness of being watched, not hostile intent, but focused attention nonetheless. Turning slowly, he identified a raven perched on nearby branch, its eyes reflecting moonlight with unnatural intelligence. Hello, observer, he said quietly. Reporting to my mother, or to her father? The bird tilted its head, regarding him with assessment beyond animal capacity, before spreading wings and departing silently into night sky. Whether Hela's familiar or Odin's spy remained unclear, perhaps deliberately so. Cosmic chess pieces advanced across Konoha's board, with Naruto increasingly aware of his position at the center of their movements. Absolutely unacceptable, Freya stated flatly, ching the confines of Team 7's private training room beneath the Hokage Tower. Unlike their public sessions in open training grounds, these facilities provided privacy seals permitting candid discussion of matters beyond standard shinobi awareness. Odin sends his personal strategist directly into your territory without subterfuge or misdirection. The implications are concerning. Sasuke, leaning against the wall with arms crossed, raised an eyebrow. You know this Sigyn personally? By reputation primarily, Freya replied. Sigyn Odindadir. Not Odin's blood daughter but his ward, Ray's. Within Asgard's royal household after being orphaned during conflicts between realms. Strategist rather than warrior, though competent in combat. Her analytical abilities rival Heimdall's, though without his all-seeing gifts. Why send her rather than someone with direct combat specialization? Sakura asked from her position at the small tactical table where scrolls and diagrams spread in organized chaos. Because this represents intelligence gathering rather than confrontation. Yet, Freya's expression darkened. Sigyn excels at pattern recognition and strategic assessment. She identifies vulnerabilities and pressure points others overlook. Naruto, who had been unusually quiet throughout the emergency meeting called after Hinata's report, finally spoke. She's specifically investigating energy signatures similar to mine, and seeking Hyuga visual confirmation. Indeed, Freya ceased pacing, turning to face Team 7 fully. The situation accelerates beyond preferred timeline. Your mother anticipated eventual Asgardian interest but not direct investigative presence before your abilities stabilized. So what's our approach? Sasuke asked practically. Avoidance, misdirection, confrontation. The directness of his question reflected how thoroughly Team 7 had integrated awareness of cosmic complexities into their tactical thinking, treating divine politics as another strategic variable rather than incomprehensible supernatural mystery. For immediate term, controlled exposure with prepared narrative, Freya decided. Complete avoidance would heighten suspicion, while open confrontation remains premature given your current development level. She turned to Naruto specifically. The Chunin examinations provide both risk and opportunity. Your abilities will be publicly displayed but within context of shinobi competition, allowing attribution to specialized techniques rather than divine heritage. Meanwhile, we investigate this shrine connection, Sakura suggested. Analytical mind identifying multiple objectives simultaneously. If Konoha itself sits on some cosmic convergence point, understanding its significance provides strategic advantage regardless of Asgardian interest. Precisely. Freya's approval manifested as marginally less severe expression. Team 7 will undertake reconnaissance mission to Eastern Shrine tomorrow. Will EI manage diplomatic interference through official channels? Sasuke straightened from his casual pose. If these Asgardians can detect certain energy signatures, we should develop countermeasures. Perhaps genjutsu specifically designed to mask Naruto's unique chakra pattern. Already underway, Freya confirmed. Though effectiveness against Asgardian perception remains untested. As tactical planning continued, Naruto found his attention repeatedly drawn to the room's eastern wall, not through conscious decision but instinctive awareness, as if something beyond the physical structure called to his senses. The others' voices faded from immediate awareness as he extended perception in ways Hela had taught during dream training. Beyond standard reality, he detected faint green luminescence, barely perceptible even to his specialized senses, flowing like subterranean river beneath Konoha's foundations. The current moved purposefully, not random energy discharge but channeled power following predetermined pathways. Naruto, are you listening? Sakura's voice penetrated his focused perception. He blinked, returning attention to the tactical discussion. Sorry, I was sensing something. He pointed toward the eastern wall. There's energy flowing beneath us, like a current leading toward the monument, and beyond, toward the forest shrine. Freya's expression sharpened with interest. You can perceive the root system without specialized training. Not clearly, just awareness of its presence and general direction. He hesitated before adding, it feels familiar somehow. Like it resonates with my own energy. Unsurprising, Freya noted, Yggdrasil connects all realms, including Helheim. As Hela's son, you share affinity with its fundamental structure. Sasuke, ever practical, redirected conversation toward actionable planning. Can this connection be utilized, either for communication or power enhancement? Potentially, though not without significant risk, Freya cautioned. Yggdrasil's energy behaves unpredictably when actively manipulated by untrained practitioners. Observation remains safer than engagement at your current development level. The IR planning session continued until well past midnight, with contingency protocols established for various scenarios involving Asgardian contact. As Team 7 finally prepared to depart, Freya held Naruto back momentarily. Expect significant dream communication tonight, she informed him quietly. Your mother monitors these developments closely. Her instructions regarding Sigyn Odindadir will likely prove specific. Naruto nodded, having anticipated as much. Any advice before I enter that conversation? Something almost like sympathy flickered across Freya's typically stoic features. Remember that while Hela remains your mother, her perspective spans millennia and galaxies. Her strategic objectives may not always align with your immediate concerns. The warning, coming from Hela's own agent, carried significant weight. Whose objectives do align with mine? Naruto asked, genuine question rather than rhetorical challenge. Freya considered this seriously before responding. Perhaps none entirely. You exist at convergence point between realms, bloodlines, and cosmic forces. Your perspective is inherently unique. After brief hesitation, she added, which may ultimately prove your greatest strength rather than vulnerability. With that surprisingly philosophical observation, she dismissed him into the quiet Konoha night, stars wheeling overhead in patterns unchanged. By cosmic politics unfolding beneath them. Helheim's throne room manifested differently in tonight's dream, not the formal audience chamber of previous visitations, but a strategic command center. The antler throne remained central, but surrounding it now spread a three-dimensional tactical display showing multiple realms simultaneously, with particular focus on Konoha rendered in detailed precision down to individual buildings. Hela stood beside this display rather than seated regally, her typical elaborate headdress absent, hair falling loose around shoulders armored in battle-ready regalia. Her attention focused on miniature representation of the Hokage Tower, where tiny figures moved in patterns suggesting surveillance activity. Odin moves more directly than anticipated, she stated without preamble as Naruto's consciousness fully materialized within the dream. Sigyn's presence confirms heightened priority in his assessment. She's investigating energy signatures similar to mine, Naruto confirmed, approaching the tactical display with interest. The representation of Konoha contained details even he wasn't aware of, including subterranean passages and hidden chambers beneath various structures. And specifically seeking Hyuga visual confirmation. As expected, Byakugan represents the closest mortal approximation to Heimdall's sight. Hela manipulated the display, focusing on the eastern forest where small green lights pulsed beneath stylized trees. More concerning is her interest in the shrine. Its significance exceeds even your awareness. Freya meant, Iond Yggdrasil's roots running close to Midgard's surface there, Naruto prompted. And Hinata can see unusual energy patterns beneath it. More than mere proximity, Hela corrected, expanding the display to show vertical cross-section beneath the shrine. During ancient conflicts predating shinobi civilization, Odin and his forces used specific nexus points for direct transport between realms. This shrine marks one such location, a doorway between worlds, deliberately obscured but never truly closed. The implications clicked immediately in Naruto's tactical assessment. So anyone who controls this shrine potentially controls direct access to Konoha from other realms. Precisely. Approval flickered briefly across Hela's severe features. Your strategic thinking develops appropriately. Yes, the shrine represents both vulnerability and opportunity. In the wrong hands, invasion point. In the right hands, escape route or reinforcement channel. And Sigyn seeks it for Odin. Among other objectives, her primary mission remains confirmation of my involvement in Midgard affairs. The shrine represents secondary target, though not by significant margin. Hela turned from the display, focusing full attention on Naruto with intensity that would have intimidated most beings across multiple realms. Which necessitates acceleration of certain aspects of your training. From experience, Naruto recognized the transition from strategic briefing to practical instruction. He straightened, mentally preparing for whatever technique Hela deemed suddenly necessary given developments. Your death essence manipulation progresses adequately through Freya's instruction, Hela acknowledged. However, certain signature abilities of our bloodline remain undeveloped in your training regimen. With casual gesture, she extended her right hand. Green-black energy coalesced around her fingers, solidifying into a gleaming blade of impossible sharpness, a necrosword, the signature weapon Hel. Could manifest from death essence itself. Manifestation of essence into physical form, she continued, examining the weapon with practiced assessment. Not merely energy projection, but coherent materialization maintaining stability independent of continuous focus. Naruto had witnessed this ability during dream training but never attempted it himself. I've channeled death essence through existing objects, but never created something from nothing. Not from nothing, Hela corrected sharply. From everything. Death essence exists in all matter, concentrated through will and bloodline authority. She reversed the blade, offering hilt toward him. Hold this. Feel its structure. Naruto accepted the necrosword cautiously. Despite its ephemeral appearance, it carried substantial weight and absolute solidity, no different from conventionally forged metal except for the subtle cold emanating from its surface and green-black energy occasionally rippling along its length. The principle differs fundamentally from your shadow clone technique, Hela instructed. Clones distribute your existing chakra into temporary forms. Necroswords collect ambient death essence into permanent manif. E-stations limited only by your will to maintain them. Permanent, Naruto questioned, examining the blade with renewed interest. Until deliberately dismissed or your consciousness ceases maintaining them, Hela clarified. They can be separated from your person, utilized by allies, or strategically positioned throughout battlefield. Particularly useful against opponents resistant to standard weaponry. The practical combat applications immediately appealed to Naruto's tactical mind. Standard shinobi weapons required physical storage, could be lost or broken, and often proved ineffective against certain defensive abilities. Weapons manifested directly from death essence would circumvent many such limitations. The technique, Hela continued, reclaiming the demonstration blade, requires S3 components: visualization of desired form, connection to ambient death essence, and application of will through bloodline authority. What followed was intensive training session unlike their previous encounters. Rather than philosophical discussion or strategic overview, Hela focused entirely on practical application, having Naruto repeatedly attempt manifestation exercises with increasing complexity. Initial results proved disappointing. Wisps of green energy that dissipated before forming coherent structure, but Hela's instruction remained unusually patient. You overthink the process, she observed after particularly frustrating failure. This ability flows from bloodline, not intellectual understanding. Feel rather than analyze. Naruto closed his eyes, centering awareness on the green energy flowing through his system. Instead of forcing it into predetermined shape through conscious effort, he allowed instinctive connection, the same feeling that occasionally emerged in combat when his heritage activated without deliberate invocation. Something shifted in his perception. When he extended his hand this time, death essence responded differently, flowing not from his body outward but from surrounding environment toward his fingers, as if he created vacuum that reality rushed to fill. Green-black energy coalesced, solidifying into crude dagger-shaped manifestation that nonetheless maintained stability when he released active focus. Better, Hela acknowledged. Rudimentary but functional. With practice, complexity and durability will increase. Naruto examined his creation with fascination, a physical object manifested from cosmic energy through his will alone. The implications extended beyond combat application into fundamental questions about realities. Malleability through appropriate bloodline connections. Now, Hela continued, dismissing the tactical display with casual gesture, regarding Sigyn Odindadir in her investigation. Direct confronta. Tion remains premature given your current development level. Avoidance similarly communicates weakness Asgardians inevitably exploit. So controlled interaction under prepared circumstances, Naruto suggested. Echoing Freya's recommended approach. Indeed, Hela's approval suggested alignment between her assessment and her agent's advice, not always guaranteed given the goddess's sometimes inscrutable objectives. The upcoming examinations provide appropriate context for displaying abilities that might otherwise draw unwanted attention. But if Sigyn specifically seeks confirmation of connection to you, she seeks patterns matching Helheim energy signatures, Hela clarified. Your hybrid nature, combined with Nine Tails' influence, creates unique signature distinct from pure Helheim resonance. Maintain that distinction through careful application rather than complete suppression. The nuanced instruction reflected Hela's millennia of experience navigating complex political dynamics between realms. Not denial of power, but controlled revelation within context that suggested alternative explanations. There's something else, Naruto observed, reading subtle tension in his Her's posture despite her controlled expression. Something beyond Sigyn's investigation concerns you. Hela's eyes narrowed briefly, perhaps surprised by his perceptiveness, or perhaps approving his development. Indeed, concurrent with Asgardian interest, the masked one from your birth has accelerated his movements. She gestured, creating small display showing masked figure Naruto recognized From previous briefings, the spiral-faced attacker who had attempted to abduct him as infant. His agents have established observation points throughout Fire Country. Their focus appears divided between you specifically and the Eastern Shrine location. He's also interested in the connection to Yggdrasil, Naruto realized. Which means he knows something about cosmic structure beyond normal shinobi awareness. Precisely. His knowledge suggests exposure to information beyond Midgard's typical boundaries. Hela's expression darkened. Multiple forces converge simultaneously. Asgardian investigation, masked adversaries' machinations, and the approaching examinations that place you under international scrutiny. Perfect storm, Naruto murmured, unconsciously adopting Sasuke's habit of understated assessment. Indeed, which necessitates additional support beyond Freya's capabilities alone. This caught Naruto's immediate attention. You're sending someone else. Circumstances demand specialized intervention, Hela confirmed. Expect additional contact following your shrine investigation. The nature of that location may facilitate certain arrangements, typically difficult to establish across realm boundaries. Before Naruto could request clarification, dream reality began shifting, indication that dawn approached in waking world. Hela made no effort to extend their connection, suggesting the instruction and information exchange had accomplished her immediate objectives. Remember, she stated as the throne room faded around them, when investigating the shrine, perception precedes interaction. Observe thoroughly before engaging with any structures or symbols you encounter. And if Sigyn appears during our investigation? Naruto asked, practical concern given the Asgardians' evident interest. Hela's smile held predatory edge. Then demonstrate abilities consistent with exceptional shinobi training rather than divine heritage. Let her report remarkable morta. L talent rather than suspicious otherworldly connection. As consciousness pulled him toward waking reality, Naruto felt the weight of competing agendas and cosmic attention settling around his shoulders. Yet alongside this burden came growing confidence in his developing abilities and the support structures, both mortal and divine, that had formed around him. Whatever confrontations approached, he would face them far better prepared than the isolated child he'd once been. The Eastern Forest Shrine stood in clearing approximately 4 kilometers from Konoha's outer walls, distance suffice. And to discourage casual visitors while remaining within defensive perimeter monitored by village sensor networks. Time had reclaimed much of the structure, with moss creeping across stone guardians flanking deteriorated wooden torii gate, and forest undergrowth encroaching upon once clear approach path. Team 7 arrived shortly after dawn, having departed separately and reconvened using credit airman rendezvous protocols to minimize tracking potential from village observers. Freya had remained behind, maintaining visible presence within Konoha to establish alibi for their unofficial excursion. Doesn't look particularly cosmic, Sasuke observed dryly as they surveyed the abandoned shrine from perimeter treeline. Just standard religious architecture from pre-founding era. Aperon. CES deliberately mislead in matters involving realm connections, Naruto replied, unconsciously adopting Hela's formal cadence when discussing cosmic principles. What matters lies beneath surface structures. Sakura completed preliminary perimeter scan before joining them. No obvious surveillance or traps detected. If anyone's monitoring this location, they're using methods beyond standard shinobi detection range. Proceed with caution, Sasuke advised unnecessarily. Naruto, take point with sensory awareness. Sakura and I maintain protective formation. The teamwork that had developed over months of specialized training under Freya manifested in their smooth approach, Naruto extending perception beyond physical senses while his teammates maintained vigilance against conventional threats. As they passed beneath the worn torii gate, Naruto felt subtle shift in ambient energy, not barrier or trap, but transition between different energy frequencies. We've crossed boundary, he informed quietly. The shrine grounds exist partially in different dimensional frequency than surrounding forest. Sakura's analytical mind engaged immediately. Fascinating. A localized reality bubble, or full dimensional overlay? Unclear, Naruto admitted, but the green energy flows more strongly here. I can see it even without specialized focus. Indeed, faint luminescent patterns traced across ground beneath their feet, following architectural lines now hidden beneath vegetation. The shrine itself comprised simple structure, single room raised on stone foundation, with weathered wooden walls and roof tiles displaced by centuries of seasonal cycles. Nothing about its external appearance suggested cosmic significance, yet Naruto felt increasingly powerful resonance with his internal energy as they approached. Main entrance or circumnavigation first? Sasuke asked. Sharingan activated to detect potential hazards. Circumnavigate, Naruto decided. Hela specifically emphasized observation before engagement. They circled the structure clockwise, noting architectural features and symbols barely visible beneath grime and vegetation. Sakura documented these with quick sketches. While Sasuke confirmed absence of conventional traps or seals. Nothing immediately suggested interdimensional significance until they reached the northern face. Look, Naruto indicated weathered stone embedded in shrine wall. Unlike natural erosion patterns on surrounding stones, this bore deliberate carvings, 9 interconnected circles arranged in distinctive pattern identical to the symbol they encountered during the Shirakawa mission. The 9 realms configuration, Sakura confirmed, comparing to documentation from their previous encounter. Identical placement and proportions. Sasuke knelt to examine foundation beneath the symbol. The stonework differs from remainder of the structure. More precise cutting, unusual material composition. His fingers traced barely perceptible seam. This section was added or modified separately from original construction. Naruto extended specialized perception toward the symbol, immediately detecting stronger energy current flowing beneath. Unlike the ambient green luminescence visible throughout the shrine grounds, this current moved purposefully, not random discharge but channeled power following predetermined pathway. There's something beneath us, he informed his teammates. A chamber or tunnel system running directly under this symbol. Entrance mechanism, Sasuke suggested, examining surrounding stonework for triggering devices. Possibly, though not necessarily mechanical. Naruto recalled Hela's instructions regarding realm connections. These transition points typically respond to specific energy signatures rather than physical manipulation. Understanding dawned in Sakura's expression. They're keyed to users from specific realms, like biometric security using cosmic energy patterns instead of fingerprints. Exactly, Naruto confirmed, which means conventional access attempts likely fail without proper resonance key. Sasuke straightened, practical assessment replacing academic curiosity. Can you provide that resonance? The question carried weight beyond its apparent simplicity. Using his heritage's energy signature would create detectable flare potentially noticeable to any being's monitoring foe. Are precisely such manifestation, including Asgardian visitors currently within Konoha. Risk versus information value calculation, Sasuke continued, reading Naruto's hesitation. Minimal activation to confirm mechanism existence without fully engaging. The suggestion reflected their evolved team dynamic, finding balanced approach between caution and necessary action. Naruto nodded agreement before kneeling beside the symbol, placing palm against central connecting point between the 9 circles. Instead of channeling death essence outward as he typically practiced, he focused on resonance, allowing his internal energy to vibrate at frequency matching the current beneath the symbol. No visible manifestation, no flaring power signature, merely harmonic alignment between his bloodline and the ancient structure. The response exceeded expectations. Rather than subtle confirmation, the entire symbol illuminated with emerald light, stone seeming to soften and flow like liquid beneath his touch. The 9 circles rearranged themselves, sliding into new configuration that formed unmistakable image, stylized tree with 9 distinct levels marked along its trunk. Yggdrasil, Naruto whispered, recognition flowing from countless dream lessons with Hela. The illumination spread beyond the symbol, following architectural lines throughout the shrine structure until the entire building glowed with subtle green luminescence visible even to normal perception. Beneath their feet, stone foundation shifted silently, revealing staircase descending into darkness that somehow contained its own illumination. Not reflected light but self-generating radiance emanating from walls inscribed with unfamiliar runes. Well, Sasuke observed with characteristic understatement, that answers the question about hidden chambers. Sakura approached the opening cautiously, analytical curiosity warring with tactical caution. The architecture below appears entirely different from surface structure. Much older design principles, unknown material composition. Naruto rose slowly, uncertain whether to proceed further or withdraw following confirmation of the shrine's significance. Hela's warning emphasized observation before engagement, yet the revealed entrance practically invited exploration. Decision was abruptly removed from their consideration as multiple chakra signatures materialized at cardinal points surrounding the shrine, 4 distinct presences appearing simultaneously with precision suggesting coordinated arrival rather than coincidental timing. Perimeter breach, Sasuke announced unnecessarily. Shifting to defensive position. 4 signatures, Jonin level or above based on suppression quality. Anbu, Sakura suggested hopefully. Sasuke shook his head slightly. Unfamiliar pattern, not Konoha standard. The first figure appeared at shrine entrance. Tall woman with platinum blonde hair arranged in complex braids, wearing diplomatic attire modified for potential combat. Her golden eyes assessed Team 7 with calm calculation before settling on Naruto specifically. Interesting timing, Sigen Odindadir observed, voice carrying subtle accent Naruto recognized from Freya's speech patterns. 3 genin activating ancient mechanisms beyond village awareness during precisely the timeframe when foreign observation focuses on unusual energy signatures. 2 additional figures appeared behind her, individuals wearing what appeared to be ceremonial armor beneath travel cloaks, their posture suggesting combat readiness despite diplomatic presentation. The 4th presence remained outside, presumably maintaining perimeter security. This shrine lies within Konoha jurisdiction, Sasuke stated evenly, assuming spokesperson position while Naruto and Sakura maintained strategic positioning relative to both the revealed staircase and potential escape routes. Our presence represents authorized investigation of historical site. Sigen's expression remained neutral, though something like amusement flickered briefly in her golden eyes. Does your Hokage share that assessment? Or did you undertake this expedition without official documentation? The Occur 8 reading of their unauthorized status suggested either exceptional intuition or prior intelligence regarding their movements. Either possibility presented concerning implications. Our team specializes in unusual chakra manifestations. Naruto stated, deciding direct albeit partial honesty might prove most effective strategy given circumstances. Recent incidents suggested connection to historical sites with unique energy patterns. Quote, indeed. Sigen approached unhurriedly, her attention shifting between Naruto and the revealed staircase with equal interest. Energy patterns remarkably similar to those detected in distant northern territories. Patterns typically associated with transitions between distinct reality frameworks. The careful phrasing communicated volumes beneath surface meaning. Without explicitly mentioning realms beyond Midgard, she clearly indicated awareness of cosmic structure typically beyond mortal knowledge. Naruto met her gaze directly, making tactical decision to engage rather than evade. You're well informed for a diplomatic representative from a nation with limited prior contact with Fire Country. As are you, for a genin recently graduated from academy training. She countered smoothly. Her focus shifted to the illuminated symbol still glowing on the shrine wall. Particularly regarding activation mechanisms for structures predating shinobi civilization. The standoff continued momentarily, neither side escalating beyond verbal exchange while maintaining combat readiness beneath diplomatic veneer. Finally, Sigen made subtle gesture to her companions, who relaxed marginally while maintaining alert positioning. Perhaps mutual information exchange serves both our interests, she suggested, tone shifting from confrontational to pragmatically cooperative. Asgard's research into these energy patterns extends considerably beyond available information within Fire Country archives. Conversely, your practical experience with local manifestations provides context our theoretical understanding lacks. The offer represented potentially valuable intelligence opportunity, albeit with significant exposure risk. Naruto glanced toward his teammates, reading their assessments through subtle posture changes developed through months of coordinated training. Sasuke's minimal head tilt suggested cautious engagement while maintaining defensive readiness. Sakura's equally subtle hand positioning indicated information extraction priority with prepared extraction strategy. Limited exchange seems reasonable, Naruto agreed carefully. Though complete briefing would require proper authorization from Konoha leadership. Naturally, Sigen acknowledged. Her attention shifted to the revealed staircase. These underground chambers, you've explored them previously. First observation, Sakura supplied before Naruto could respond, redirecting conversation to less personally focused topic. Our investigation remains preliminary. Fascinating timing, Sigen observed again, implications clear in her tone. She approached the staircase entrance, studying inscriptions with evident familiarity. These runes describe transition point between branches of Yggdrasil, though that term would be unfamiliar within your cultural framework. The world tree connecting 9 realms, Naruto stated, deliberate revelation calculated to gauge her reaction. Central cosmological principle in northern mythological structures. Sigen's full attention returned to him, assessment intensifying. Your educational background includes unusually comprehensive understanding of obscure mythological frameworks, Uzumaki-san. I find comparative mythology fascinating, he replied with practiced casualness, maintaining cover story developed with Freya's assistance. Particularly cosmic organizational principles across disparate cultural traditions. Indeed, her expression revealed nothing, though Naruto sensed increased focus in her evaluation. Perhaps you'd share insights regarding these specific inscriptions. Their dialect suggests Second Age composition, relatively rare in remaining artifacts. The invitation represented obvious TTEMPT to evaluate his knowledge depth regarding Asgardian matters beyond publicly available information. Before he could formulate appropriately balanced response, distant explosion shattered the diplomatic tension. Significant detonation originating from Konoha's direction, smoke plume visible above forest canopy despite 4-kilometer distance. The village, Sakura exclaimed, attention immediately diverted. Sasuke activated communication device concealed within collar. Control, report status, he transmitted, using standard emergency protocol. Static responded initially before fragmented transmission broke through. Multiple points. Unknown hostiles. Hokage Tower secured but Eastern Sector. Evacuation protocol activated. All field units return. Sigen's attention had similarly diverted toward Konoha, her expression shifting from diplomatic calculation to combat readiness. She issued rapid commands in unfamiliar language to her companions, who immediately moved to defensive formation. Unfortunate timing, she stated. Switching back to common language. It appears our scholarly discussion must continue another day. Your village requires your presence. The abrupt dismissal confirmed Naruto's suspicion that whatever attacked Konoha was unrelated to Asgardian investigation, Sigen's genuine surprise suggesting separate threat entirely. Before Team 7 could respond, another communication broke through their devices. Team 7, Eastern Shrine, return immediately, Freya's voice, tense but controlled. Direct approach compromised, use secondary extraction route. The transmission cut abruptly, leaving ominous silence. Sasuke and Sakura immediately shifted to extraction positioning while Naruto maintained focus on their Asgardian observers. It seems we both have pressing obligations, he stated, matching Sigen's diplomatic tone despite urgency. Indeed, her golden eyes studied him with renewed intensity. Though I suspect our paths cross again soon, Uzumaki Naruto. Perhaps under circumstances permitting more substantive exchange. Without waiting for response, she and her companions departed with preternatural speed that confirmed their capabilities exte. NDED beyond standard diplomatic training. Within moments, Team 7 stood alone before the activated shrine, emergency alarms now audible from Konoha despite significant distance. Direct approach compromised. Sasuke quoted Freya's warning, standard routes likely monitored or engaged. Sakura glanced toward the revealed staircase, mind calculating alternatives. Secondary extraction route, could she mean? Naruto followed her gaze, intuitive understanding forming. The underground complex. If it truly connects to Yggdrasil's structure, it might provide alternative path to Konoha, Sasuke completed. Sharingan scanning the descending staircase. High risk, unknown factors, but potentially viable given compromised surface routes. The decision crystallized through unspoken consensus. Their developed team dynamic requiring minimal verbal confirmation. With Konoha under attack and standard approaches compromised, unconventional extraction represented logical strategy despite uncertainties. I'll take point, Naruto stated, death essence perception representing most relevant capability for navigating structure connected to cosmic pathways. Maintain close formation, communication discipline, and environmental awareness. As Team 7 descended the staircase, green illumination intensified around them. The stone steps transitioned to material resembling neither concrete nor natural stone, slightly resilient beneath their feet while maintaining structural integrity beyond normal construction materials. The passage extended approximately 20 meters downward BEF, or opening into chamber that defied conventional architectural expectations. Unlike the weathered shrine above, this space appeared untouched by time, pristine surfaces composed of material resembling polished obsidian but somehow simultaneously transparent and opaque depending on viewing angle. Most striking was the central feature, a tree-like structure emerging from floor and extending into ceiling. Its trunk, composed not of wood but crystalline material through which energy visibly flowed in complex patterns. 9 primary branches extended at different elevations, each terminating in CIR. Couloir platform inscribed with unique rune configuration. Yggdrasil Nexus Point, Naruto whispered, recognition flowing from countless dream descriptions Hela had provided. Physical manifestation of cosmic intersection. Theoretical impossibility, Sakura murmured, scientific mind struggling to reconcile observation with established understanding. Dimensional gateway contained within stable architectural structure. Sasuke, ever practical, focused on immediate tactical application. Which branch connects to Konoha? And how do we activate transit function? Naruto approached the central structure cautiously. Death essence perception revealing energy flows invisible to normal sight. Each branch conducted specific frequency, distinct energy signatures corresponding to different destinations within larger cosmic framework. One branch pulsed with energy pattern matching Konoha's underlying current, the same signature he detected beneath the Hokage monument during previous perception exercises. Following intuitive understanding rather than explicit knowledge, he placed palm against this branch's base. The response exceeded expectation. Rather than subtle activation, the entire sea Hamber illuminated with emerald light as energy surged through the tree structure, concentrating within his selected branch. The circular platform at its termination point shifted from dormant state to active illumination. Runes glowing with increasing intensity. I think, Naruto began uncertainly, we're supposed to. Before he could complete the thought, the platform expanded rapidly, energy field encompassing Team 7 in verdant luminescence that seemed simultaneously solid and permeable. Sensation of movement without motion enveloped them, physical displacement without traversing intervening space. Reality shifted, blurred, reconfigured around them in nauseating kaleidoscope before resolidifying into entirely different location. Stone chamber beneath the Hokage monument, ancient architecture similar to shrine complex but clearly part of Konoha's substructure rather than distant outpost. Stand on the activation platform, Naruto completed unnecessarily as they found themselves already transported. Efficient, if disorienting, Sasuke observed, recovering composure quickly. Location assessment. Sakura oriented first, recognizing architectural elements. Sub-level 3 beneath Hokage monument. Historically restricted sector. I've seen schematics during archive research. Their location confirmation was interrupted by approaching footsteps, multiple individuals moving with coordinated precision toward their position. Combat readiness engaged automatically before familiar chakra signature registered. Impressive adaptation, Freya stated as she entered the chamber. Still maintaining Jonin appearance though subtle armor elements had manifested beneath standard vest. The Yggdrasil transport system typically requires specialized attunement for first navigation. The situation, Sasuke demanded immediately, prioritizing tactical awareness over explanation. Multiple penetration points along village perimeter, Freya reported efficiently. Unknown host. Isles utilizing specialized techniques suggesting outside realm origin. Primary target appears to be Hokage Tower Records Section and Eastern Residential District. Civilian casualties. Sakura asked. Minimal currently. Evacuation protocols engaged effectively. Freya's expression darkened slightly. However, attack pattern suggests specific targeting rather than general destruction. Intellige. NCE extraction rather than military conquest. What intelligence specifically? Naruto pressed, suspecting connection to recent developments. Unknown conclusively, though timing suggests connectio. End to either Asgardian diplomatic arrival or your own heritage activation incidents. She gestured toward passage leading deeper into monument substructure. The Hokage awaits briefing in Emergency Command Center. Your shrine investigation results may provide context for current attack pattern. As Team 7 followed Freya through ancient corridors that gradually transitioned to modern construction, Naruto found his thoughts divided between immediate tactical concerns and larger implications. The shrine activation, Asgardian confrontation, and village attack occurring in such rapid successio suggested coordination beyond coincidence. Multiple forces converged upon Konoha simultaneously. Asgardian investigation, unknown hostiles, and his own heritage's accelerating manifestation creating perfect storm of circumstances beyond standard shinobi conflict parameters. The Chunin examinations, scheduled to commence within weeks, would only intensify international scrutiny upon Village Hour 80 experiencing cosmic attention from multiple directions. Whatever normal developmental pathway might have allowed gradual integration of his dual nature had vanished beneath accelerating timeline. The goddess watched indeed, but so did many other entities across realms and dimensions, their attention increasingly focused upon intersection point where divine bloodline, tailed beast, and cosmic nexus converged within single individual. As Team 7 entered the Emergency Command Center, Naruto touched the concealed pendant beneath his shirt, momentarily connecting with Hela's distant awareness. Whatever game unfolded across cosmic board, the pieces had begun moving with increasing speed, forcing players to reveal strategies previously maintained in careful secrecy. The time for hiding had indeed passed. What remained to be determined was what emerged when concealment failed, shinobi, demigod, or something unique at the convergence of both heritages. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.